I don't know why I thought there would be like a little break before that little. Did anybody else think that? I don't know why I thought. I don't know. Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Hope you guys had a fabulous week. I hope you have a fabulous weekend. I hope you have a fabulous holiday. Happy Thanksgiving. If you believe it, well, I hope everybody believes in Thanksgiving. It's like giving thanks. So, um, but happy Thanksgiving. How are you guys today? Well, let me introduce everybody. We have Mistaken, Enos, and the AP. My name is Shia Monet, and this is a Chic critique. Y'all come off the mics. You can unmute the mics.
You look cute. You going somewhere?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Where am I going?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. You looking
here with you.
Look, I know you ain't go to work looking like that today.
Yes, I do. I like this all the time. I'm here with you. What do you mean? No, no, I'm not going nowhere.
You coming back from somewhere?
Yeah, sleep. I went to sleep. Just like you. Maybe I partied in my dreams, you know, and woke up fabulous. Oh gosh. So how are you guys doing? Small talk. We'll be over in a second. I think I got a little cold though.
AP, you the lone male tonight.
I know we gotta wait for Marky Mark. I really wanted more men here for this conversation. However, it is Friday, so I would not rush people. I would not be mad because I understand that not everybody has a Friday to give up. So we'll count our blessings. You know?
I'll see what I can do to hold it down.
All right.
I know I can't see. I'm gonna put these glasses on, honey. Oh. you know how they used to have them glasses, the old school glasses, you just put it up to you like
with the little stick.
Now I get it. I never understood that, but the way I just did that, so I get it now. Why that would be a thing. It's so funny because the older you get, it's like you start to realize, like I now see certain things.
HD just gave us the confirmation.
Oh, okay.
In the super chat.
I see.
Why HD not here? I know he put in there why he couldn't be here. Boy, HD, pull up. Pull up to the bumper, baby. Y'all remember that?
Can't pull up when you got somebody bent over.
Try to make them babies. Try to make them babies.
I know he's gonna get me for that one.
Well, that means he should be here in a few minutes.
Few seconds.
HD, you gotta defend yourself on this one, bro. They're coming for you.
I'm just talking junk because he ain't
Who
here.
are we fooling? Few seconds. Come on, baby. It's done.
Just talk a little junk because he ain't here.
Mm-hmm. All right, you guys. So the conversation tonight is there an attack on the Black community? I really wanted it to be, is there an attack on Black, but JR had to go throw community in there. And it's sad, the reason I say on Black is because I want to talk about Black women, Black men, and then all of Black, because I feel like you can be Black and not necessarily African American Black, all of Black, you know. That's how I know some people don't look at it that way, but I feel like if you are of Afro descent, you are Black. If you are African American, then you are African American. But Black can be, you know, they're different nations of Black, if that makes sense. So the first question, let's talk about, since the women are here, and we'll wait for Marky Mark will be pulling up. Do you think that there's an attack on Black women? And we're gonna do Black men when we get some men.
Absolutely. I think we touched on it last week. Where was it last week, or maybe it was another show? I've been watching a lot of the shows. Everything's getting kind of jumbled, but women are where community is supposed to begin, right? And so if there's an attack on Black women, that immediately has an effect on the Black community. And if you're looking to weaken or destroy the Black community, then why not start with women? The men tend to be a little bit more rooted in the way that they function. And so we tend to become the easier target, so to speak.
Anybody else wanted to jump in on that?
I would say yes. But again, I think kind of speaking to what Inaz was saying, you typically, I think you go for the weakest vessel. So I think there's an attack on Black children first, then women,
How is that?
then men.
Okay, we'll go back to that because I'm going to ask that in a second. But go ahead,
Yeah.
Black children, and then what?
Then women, then men. I think usually when you're trying to impose something that's going to happen generationally, you start with the kids because they're the easier target, and then the women, and then the men. So I think it kind of happens in that order. But I think as a group, I think there's an attack on Black community in general.
AP?
I'm trying to understand the context in which you mean attack. So, who are we talking about is going after Black women? Are we saying that?
And that was going to be my next question. So I wanted you to answer this, and then we're going to go into that question.
I'd say yes, mainly because I believe that there's an overall attack similar to what Ms. Taken was saying. There's an overall attack on the community at large, and I actually agree with just about everything Ms. Taken said. You do attack the weaker vessel as you actually build your coalition to go up to men. I just think that that's the normal basis of any attack. So, yeah, I completely agree with Ms. Taken.
Do you think, so my next question, you kind of asked that question was, well, who do you think that these attacks are coming from when it comes to Black women? And we'll get to Black men, maybe something totally different, but for Black women, and we'll just put Black women / children, and since we brought that up at this point, who do you think that this attack is coming from?
So if you're asking me specifically, I think every outside force does what it can to attack the Black community as a whole. I think the goal, the objective is to keep Black people divided, because we see what happens when Black people unite. We become strong, and we basically become an unmovable force. So I just think that just about any outside force works to keep the community as separate as possible. So that's how I was thinking of the word attack. Um, and when we think of attack, we think of war. And the question is, who is the enemy? Who is attacking the community? And I would say just about any outside force looking to hold and remain in power, because we have the power to basically flip. Let's just say we're talking about government. We have the power to flip any state if we choose it. We have the power to flip any seat. We have the power to flip any institution. And as long as you can keep the community itself divided, you can win that war. Because essentially, when I think of the way the attack looks on Black women, I think it's more of a manipulation and basically like a dupe. We want you on our side. If we can get you on our side, we can give you any message that we want to give you to keep the pressure on the gentlemen of the community. And I think by and large that that's where the so-called gender war itself comes from, and that's just kind of my opinion on it.
Anybody else? Go
Yeah, so to I agree with AP. I think it is an attack on all fronts. I don't think it's just a government thing, right? When we look at society in general benefits from broken families in the Black community. It benefits economically, it benefits politically, it benefits in terms of social influence. Um, and so when you look at it that way, you see that the attack comes from the economy, it comes from the government, it comes from societal expectations. And I think part of it, even though we hate to bring up this point, a lot of the infrastructures in the Western world are rooted in racism. And so, in order to uphold the structures as is, it does need to be maintained in a way where Black people don't get to attain power or build or connect, right? So it is coming from every angle, even as simple as just simple beauty standards, right? It seems really superficial, but it can seep in from any direction depending on where a certain sector feels somebody susceptible.
I was pretty much going to say kind of what AP said in regards to the government is one. I think, but the broader perspective, I guess, kind of what Inaz was saying, the society at large. But I think it is the 1%ers of the society at large. When I look at, like Inaz was saying, the economics, things like that, I think that is I would say, the economics as well as education. I think education system reinforces a lot of the stuff that impacts Black communities. So much so to the point that, like what AP was saying, in terms of keeping us divided, because even we attack each other. So, so yeah, definitely, I would say the influence would be the government, because there's certain things that put in place that helps maintain the what Inaz was saying, maintain some of the racist fabric of Western society. But it's not just in the West, it's just, I guess, the colonizer mindset that is impacting in all areas of, like what you were saying, the Black diaspora. Mm.
So, if you don't mind, if I ask you two educators a question, because I think you touched on a very good point, Ms. Taken, about the education system, and I think a lot of it is rooted in the subpar education system, especially in Black concentrated areas. You know, where what's the word I'm looking for? Where where it's the most dense. The question I have is, in those instances, why are we not running for school board and state seats so that we can actually control that piece of it? What prevents us from doing that? How does it keep us out? Furthermore, with the structure that's in place, what makes it difficult for you as educators to 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 balance the education standard with, never mind, I was the answer is the war on the Black people. Never mind, I just answered it myself. As I'm thinking it through, I'm like, keep us divided, then there's really no front for us to fight on. Next the question, never mind.
I would say, I think we are our biggest threat. I think that a lot of things could be, so you said when it comes to board members, I mean, we have to run. I mean, that's up to the person. You have to people have more people who want to run for spots, on the board. As far here, I can only go by for what I see. When African American people run here, and I live in a predominantly white county, they typically win. So it's just all about running finding people to run and you put them on the board. So I think that right now, if I'm not mistaken, how many African American people do we have on the board?
I think it's about 3 now.
Yeah, and we did. It used to be none. Um,
Mhm.
but
But
I
that
will
just happened recently in the last
say
few
recently.
years. Yeah.
Mhm. But I would also say that when we get there, we have to make wise decisions.
Mhm.
And think it through because, and you know what I'm talking about, mistake. But
Mhm.
I think that sometimes it is. I'm trying to say something without saying something, but I just think that when you get there, you can't screw it up. You have to make wise decisions. It has to be the right people
Mhm.
to fill the position, not just because you're black. You know, it just has to be the right people. And it doesn't even have to be a black person. It could be somebody who would people, a person who has black kids, our interests at heart. But it just has to be the right person. Let me just say that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things that you were saying, AP, is like, why aren't we on boards? One, like Shan said, we have to run, but then two, the other thing is that there's not enough of us involved in the system itself. So even if we're not on the board per se, you still have power if you just show up, right? If you're showing up to board meetings, if you're voicing, issues that are going on that to represent what's going on in the particular schools that you go to, if you're showing up at the schools that your kids are going to, so you'll firsthand what is needed in your school system, so you know what you're fighting for. But a lot of the work, I have to be honest, is on us. We can't blame necessarily the school system itself when we're not trying to be active participants in it. So if you don't show up, then you are not really in a position to fuss about what's going on when you're not trying to be actively connected to the system.
And I think, and to add on to that, and I don't want to get too far into this, but we got to do a better job at home before the kid even gets into the school system. Like a lot of that foundation comes from home. Um, and without the home, a lot of it comes from home. And we're going to talk about that. And then I don't want to get into it too much because we're going to talk about that next with a clip. But a lot of stuff starts at home.
But not even just the school system. We have a pattern, like not even showing up when it's time to vote. And I'm not talking about when we're voting for presidents, right? When we are voting for the board members, when we are voting for, having local elections and things like that, that's where we definitely fall short. We'll show up and show out for the major elections, which I'm not saying those aren't important, but what's more important are the ones that's going to have the more effect on your day-to-day lives of where you live, and those are the ones we don't show up to.
So I know I'm not an educator, but I did want to add this. I think the ladies did a wonderful job of answering your question. The majority of Black people live in poverty, right? The majority of Black people are in a situation where they're working 2, sometimes 3, sometimes more jobs to make ends meet. They don't actually have time or the level of awareness to know when a seat is open on a school board, let alone the time that it takes to run or to network in order to win, right? And so what seems like an easy solution is out of a lot of people's reality. You have to have the luxury of time to build those connections, to build that network, to understand what's going on. And unfortunately, because of a variety of systems that we discussed earlier, um, they just don't have the time to be able to do it. And then it's by the greater society, and sometimes even internally, very easily labeled as dismissive or lazy.
Gotcha. Anybody, Marky, would you like to answer? Do you think there's attack on Black women? No, it's a strong question for somebody who probably just woke up.
Yeah, yeah, everybody get attacked. I'm trying to. I don't know the context of the whole
No,
question.
we're gonna let's talk about black women right now, but we'll talk about black men next question. But do you think there's an attack on black women? And if so, by who? Why?
Yeah, by who? A lot of different groups, I guess. Like, what you mean, like the image, like physical, like
Just the overall.
ability to reproduce. Like, it's a lot of different ways that could be going. Like,
Oh, tell us. What do you think?
you had to pinpoint specifically which way you're talking about, so I can tell you which group I think
They like to get attacked from every angle. Come on, just let us know.
Nah, bro, you got to answer this wide open the way it was for me. Come on, let's go.
Probably I go with image then. I mean, Sexy Red and Lizzo is probably some of the most famous artists, and we produce culture, so that's the representation, overweight and extra ratchet at this point. So whoever is the proprietor of the means of entertainment and the major labels sending that out, I would think they would have because everything is a narrative, meaning somebody specifically chose for it to go in a certain direction. Yes. So whoever specifically chose to highlight and promote that classification of black woman, right? That would be the person or group of people responsible for the attack on the image. Now, the thing about poverty is, or lack of resources, or lack of opportunity, or lack of abundance, it puts people in a precarious situation where they do things that they normally would be averse to, that they would not do had they been in a different situation, had they felt that they had another opportunity. But those two things, you can almost get some. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Saw, but I compare like the situation of black people in America in general to the movie Saw. You give people really bad choices to survive, and then you sit back and judge them for it. So if you put a camcorder on them, you got a horror movie, and that's what we be looking at when we see people highlight the worst choices people make. A horror movie, a motion picture.
Marcus, I got a quick question for you. And this may be a chicken and the egg question. I'm not 100% sure. But when I'm just going to take Lizzo, for example, because the Sexy Red is just a whole different animal to try to tackle at this moment. So we're talking about the image, right? Who said it first? Accept me for who I am. How did that messaging get out? Like, I can understand how if let's say I was that proprietor you're talking about, and I want to capitalize on that particular messaging, which came first? Did black women say, hey, just accept me the way I am, or was the messaging before? And that's something that they bought into. I'm just curious on your thoughts on that.
I think so. Now we got to. All right. So which one you saying with Lizzo, right?
Yeah.
So I seen a documentary that talked about the FDA food approval. I'm not even gonna talk about that. So I seen a movie that talked about the cyclical cycle of, or that's double negative, but the cycle of trends. It's called. Damn, do you remember the name of that movie? Oh, shit. So in that movie, what they do is they use advertising to make things popular so that they could sell the product. And then they make that product harmful so they can sell a cure. And then they make the cure harmful so they can resell the product. So one of the things they used as example was fast food. The fast food was so dangerous that it caused these people to be on my 600-pound life. And then on my 600-pound life, they got gastric bypasses and they promoted this healthy lifestyle. Then they needed to sell something else. So then the gastric bypass went to show that they had low negative self-image. So now they need to okay the fast food again. So the fast food was okay because you had to love yourself. It just went in a cycle and kept doing that. Problem, cure. The cure is a problem. Problem. And then just kept doing this. So in Lizzo's life cycle, it probably was the cure is the problem. We walking back into the problem is not is okay. You know what I'm saying? What they say, hard times create soft men. Soft men create hard times. Hard times, you know the cycle. I'm just waking up, so you got to excuse me.
So I have a question though, because I'm a 90s girl, 80s baby, 90s girl. And we were just as poor in the 90s, if not poorer. And I just didn't see, it was a small group of the booty, you had the Adina Howard. It was such a small group, right? But I did not see the image being the way it is now, even under the same circumstances. I saw more of Black unity, Black power, people were proud of their heritage, all of those things. So what do you think the difference is?
Consumerism's changed, right? Because I saw somebody in the chat also question the whole poverty thing. The debt to income ratio is probably one of the things that's changed the most drastically from the time you're talking about to where we're at now, where people are in debt more than they're earning. So this idea that I need to buy things to fulfill this lifestyle, I need to buy things to keep up with this image, I need to buy things to compete with the Joneses, has really set people in a situation where most people will never be able to come out of debt with the habits that they have and the lack of financial literacy, right? And then you have social media on top of it that just fuels this idea that if you wear the same outfit twice, then you're a certain economic bracket, right? You have people renting clothing to be able to keep up the image that they can afford to not wear something twice. So when that's what's going on in the world and the behaviors that people are having, you mask poverty in a way that before people just accepted and lived within their means.
I think the other thing though too is that the difference in that time period is that you still had remnants of a community. So even though a dad may not necessarily have been been in the home, you had a community. So there were male figures that were there that also, helped with or were around or were examples for other young boys in the community. We had a lot of programs that were available at that time as well that, help keep kids off the street if their parents were working. So again, you had the YMCA after school programs. It was a lot that I think at that time was available. And again, I think as a whole, the society as a whole were kind of on the same page in terms of the culture at that point in time. I don't think it was as much influence from social media that we do have now versus then. It was less exposure to a lot of things that was unacceptable, then that is acceptable now. So I think those things have also influenced and changed, as well.
So when I hear this, it takes us back to that first question when Shan asked, "Is there an attack on Black women?" Um, my counter to that is, I think the attack itself has pretty much, when I say the community, it has been on Black men to help keep the community separate. One of the things you mentioned just now was there were still men around, which means they hadn't completed their goals. So the mass incarceration continued throughout the 90s to continue to break up that Black family, which led to a much smaller community or tribe, if you want to call it more like a tribe. And as the tribe shrank, more individualism became, and here we are in 2023, right? Like, I think the attack itself was to remove the man from the house. And I know we're not that in the part of the show because I think Shannon's going to get there, but when I see it, it makes me think more. Were women more used? Like, I'm not saying that women weren't used and weren't attacked, but were they used more like pawns to help continue the divide of the community? And I think as we break this down, I think we'll get into that.
So just surface level, I guess, to what Marcus was saying about like the cycle part, right? Is when the man is in the household and a woman grew up with her father, she will tend to either follow her father's programming or her husband's programming. So by removing the man, she's now susceptible to societal programming. And then what happens when that man's away, right? Now she gets this inflated sense of self where she could just be whatever she wants to be and makes it known to the world that she needs to be accepted as is, which breeds a combative behavior, which means she's not going to find a man who's going to marry her. So now she's having children out of wedlock, right? And so I understand what you're saying about the attack on men in terms of that forced removal, but there's still the attack on women so that removal sticks instead of just being a temporary issue.
Okay.
Hey,
Okay. Go ahead.
I just read a comment. Bill Cosby tried to warn us about absent male role models in the community and film. Remember Ghost Dead? That's deep. If you
Y'all,
just
and he was attacked for that, like super
that's
attacked
deep.
for that.
That's deep. I know.
Yeah,
So
we
like with my
So let me ask you a question because we're about to go. This will move us into the next. Oh, but go ahead. If you have anything else to say about Black women, so we're gonna move us into Black men. But go ahead.
like my daughters, right? So they just getting out of the toddler phase. One of them is getting in the rambunctious stage. I told you I wasn't like physically spanking them or whatever, right? So if I wasn't here, I think she'll be acting crazy, like going wild. I could punish her, like make her go in her room and just with my voice, get her together to the point that she'll be apologizing. She been on her best behavior the last 4 or 5 days just because she got punished by me. You know what I'm saying? She did some wild stuff, but she still got punished by me. And now she's behaving. And I can only imagine if it was no male in the house, what that'll look like and what that could transpire into if I wasn't there to catch everything all the time. Like, I don't know. People could be like, you could raise your kids without men in the home, which is true. You could do it, but you also could survive a jump off a building. I wouldn't advise nobody to jump off the building just because somebody can do it. Like,
people be underestimating the disciplinary that just having a man in the house. A woman has to do so much to get that when a man can just use his voice, and it's just something about him that's just he just says it. It's like, I you got no get it twisted. You got hard women.
No, I was gonna say that. I just want to clarify the type of man that's in. You want to make sure that the man that is in the house is a good influence. And the only reason I want to specify that is because you do have men in the house that are not owning their responsibilities as a man, and the influence that they are having on the children, to me, are just as bad, or if not worse, with them being in the house, not performing their role that they have, because I've seen the impact in real time, where the dad was there, but the things that he was doing and how he was moving in front of his children just was not good, So I just want to clarify that we want to make sure that the male influence in the home is a positive male influence.
So I did see a study not all that long ago, because that was one of the things that kind of, made the wheels turn for me, of like the type of man in the home. Does that make a difference in the upbringing of the child, right? And so it was a really small study. However, having a negative male influence, although not ideal, is still better than not having a male influence at all in terms of how the children typically turn out, right? So yes, we want everybody to have healthy, productive relationships that optimize the upbringing of every child. We absolutely want to advocate for that. At the same time, with that kind of precaution that you gave, it is still significantly better in how children turn out statistically, even though it's a small sample size, than not having any man in the household. It's just a different set of issues, right? Like it does still create issues. It's just totally different. Yeah.
If you have a man in the household who is, well, actually, is a video going around. I don't know who's the father, but I think maybe I've seen it on IG where it was the little kid's birthday party, and the theme of the birthday party was like they had guns and money and like, and the little kids in the video with the guns, and it was nothing but all men. Women weren't even a part of the birthday party. Like it was all men. And so I'm not saying that is the majority of men, but what I just want to specify, Nas mentioned a study. I definitely would like to see that, but for me, it even if it says to have a bad man in a house is better than not having a man in the house at all, I would just beg to differ of saying not have that man in the house and substitute him for, a coach or somebody that's going to have a more positive influence, even if there's someone not there every day. I do think that there is a man that's necessary to have some kind of influence, but just for me, thinking on perspective of I'd rather not have a bad man that lives in the household that's going to have that kind of influence on a daily basis versus maybe finding a coach or a pastor or, a mentor, somebody that can have a better influence.
My trigger might, because I think you want a gender war mistake.
Or
today,
or just not have a baby, like that, like the, because I'm gonna steal a line from Ricky if y'all don't mind. He said, "You pick them, you chose them."
So let me just say this, and I think we've mentioned this before. Men, so when you marry somebody, a person, just because a person is a good husband does not mean they're a good father. Just because a person is a good father does not mean that they're a good husband. People, unfortunately, when it comes to, and this is for mothers and fathers alike, because I can put this same situation when it comes to mothers. People don't know that they're not good mothers or fathers until they become mothers and fathers, because it's the most selfless thing you could do. It sounds good until you actually have to do it and you realize, I'm not built for this, and it's oopsie, like, unfortunately the kid is here, you got to deal with it. Some people handle it well, they step into it like, look, this is what I got to do. And some people, they just can't do it. And that's men and women alike. So yes, if he's giving you red flags, he's abusive, he's a bad guy before you even, got pregnant, that's your fault. But there are times when situations bring out different types of people. You see, it's a different season, and different seasons bring out a different part of that person. Sometimes it freaks them out. They didn't even know, So I think that's you, and that's no matter what race you're none of that. So I think that that's important to say as well. It's not as cut and dry. Yes, sometimes it is, because if he was putting them hands on you before you got pregnant, it was going to keep on going. If he was verbally abusive to you before you got pregnant, it obviously, but in other situations, there is possible that people just don't know what kind of parent they're going to be because they've never been a parent before. And they realize they ain't parent material when they have a kid. Have some time.
I'm just going to
figure it out.
Honest.
They don't really got no choice.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. If it is a good man it's hard for me to picture a good man not giving it an earnest effort to be the best father he can be.
So
Like
what?
it's just hard for me to picture that.
So what in your mind makes a man a good man?
Um, the number one thing is honesty and integrity.
Okay.
It's hard for me to say what a good man to a woman is, but I can tell you what a good man to me from a male point of view. Um, a man of his word, a man who is who he says he is. Um, integrity being a huge part of it. So that to me is a good man. All the other stuff is situational based.
Can y'all tell me what like a bad man is? Like at the bare threshold, not the extreme case, but what crosses the line from a normal man right into a bad man? Just so I can have a working definition. Not the extreme, the bare minimum.
I can
Like once you've done this, I think you're a bad
I was
man.
just gonna go into what I see to that.
Not the extreme. Not somebody that's beating people and doing all this other stuff.
No.
But when he's right at that line and he crosses.
This is normal bad man. I wasn't talking about no beater. I'm talking about what we consider as normal, what I consider as bad. But go ahead. But Nas, I saw your hand up. I was gonna let you go. Then
Nas.
Okay. A man that's indecisive, a man that's emotionally ruled, a man who has no purpose, a man who's inconsistent, a man whose word has little or no value, a man that does not make genuine effort. I think I'll stop there. I think those are kind of the baseline determining factors without going into extremes.
Yeah, Inaz took route 2 of what I was going to say. I was going to say, well, a man who's inconsistent in his thoughts and actions, a man who lies is not a person, of his word. Like, back in the day, say your word is your bond. So a man that doesn't necessarily live by that code. I would say a man who also is okay with not growing, like, that kind of plays the victim as opposed to finding solutions, like a problem solver. Like, this isn't working, let me see what I can do. Like, some men get comfortable living in, dysfunction, not trying to grow and looking for other people to take care of the problem. So I would say that in terms of baseline, not the extreme, like Marcus was saying. Not to have.
Would you say that those are like signs of a emotional man? Like, so I'll give you an example of how I heard it, right? Like, so if say a problem occurs and he starts like whining about it and not trying to move forward with a solution. Because it kind of sounded like the things you guys were listing were all things that they kind of oriented back around the problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
So if instead of problem solving, that person was like wallowing in the feeling, like, because some of that could be depression, right? That's also a feeling. They could be depressed and stay in that space, or they could be angry and stay in that space. It's like an unregulated emotional man. That's kind of what it sounds like. It's like the threshold. Once you are unregulated emotionally, then you cross over into the lane of bad man. If I'm getting that correct, would that be what y'all saying?
Mm-hmm.
Just okay.
Well, yeah, if you allow the emotions to allow your emotions to drive your behavior. So I don't think there's anything wrong with a man having emotions. Like, if you lost your job and you got depressed, to me, I understand that, right? I would expect you, especially with how much emphasis it is put on men to be the breadwinner or make sure that they, are taking care of their family financially. So if you were in a position where you lost your job and then you got depressed, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think it's more along the lines of, like you said, if you stay in it, it's okay to be like, damn, sometimes you need that moment to wallow and then be like, all right, let me think about what I need to do to, find me another job or get some money in a house or do whatever. So I think that's okay. It's when you wallow, when you let your emotions drive your behavior, as opposed to feeling an emotion in a moment, but then gathering yourself together and then coming up with a game plan of what's next, or, what do I need to do? So absolutely.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to add to that? Did you have any more questions, Mark?
You say anything, Shane?
We'll get into. Did I say anything about what? Emotional man? I can't hear you. Tap that microphone one more time.
It's good, right?
Okay, yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I figured, so two things about the mic, because I know it was going off the other day. So I found out that it's got like these little buttons, and it's a spectrum where it grabbed so when I had it turned like this, I don't know if you can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to, because it already activated. So that was the issue. I had it turned the wrong way. So that was a user error. The other thing is, by the way, if y'all get the mic, when y'all talking, if you want to clip yourself up, you online, because you can see the light, so you can quickly fast forward to when you speaking. But
I have.
that's how you tell.
Oh no. I wanted to hear more about the mic, but let me ask you a question because I got ADD and I forget. Oh shit! My battery starts and it's going low. Let me plug it up before I shut down on y'all. Okay, so who is this? Is that Lonnie Clark? And I'm glad he asked this because we'll talk about this in a second. Okay, one of his question was, don't forget, because we're talking about women at this point. We'll talk about men in a second. Don't forget that the man was raised by a single mom. And I think that this is a perfect example of an attack on women. Okay, somebody got to raise you. So, would you rather her walk out? So it'd be like, okay, now he's raised by the streets. I mean, what do you want the mom to do? Like, it's like, oh, don't forget. So this is what I don't like. This is the attack that you get attacked for trying to do the right thing. Whether you do it wrong, because nobody has a class in motherhood. Nobody has, there's an attack. Instead of being an attack on the fact that you have to be a single mom, you're being attacked because you are a single mom. You know what I'm saying? I do believe, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about, I guess, men. I don't know. But I hate when people say that. And I know that there are circumstances now. There are circumstances, whether it be welfare or all those things of the past people like to bring up or whatever. But I don't like that attack, like, oh, it's the mom. Or, it's always the woman because she's a single mother. Like there wasn't sperm that had to go into her to make her a single mom. Like that's the attack. Like it's only her. Like it's her fault. It's just her fault. She raised those kids because it's her fault, and it's never the other person's fault. Does that make sense?
So yeah, I think that absolutely can make sense. But so I think when you look at like a lot of the men in the space, especially that congregate to the space, a lot of them have similar experiences that they actually felt as though their mom was a bad woman. Right? It's like they might have, like she might have been abusive, or so back to the is it because all right, so if a man is a bad man, is it better you guys feel it's not better for him to be in the family, right? What if it's a bad mother? Do you feel, I know not you, Enos. I'm talking about.
I think for for mothers, I just saw, and I wish I would have this clip. I saw a woman who, and I'm gonna say this briefly because we want to go into the next because it's taking it off the subject. But I saw a woman, she had killed, it was a white lady, she had killed 2 kids who were biracial, right? And the question in the chat was, well, where was the dad? And people are like, well, why is it a big deal? Because the other parent should have taken them kids. The other parent should have definitely. So in that situation, but found out he was deceased, so that's not at all. But in a situation where there's a bad mother at play, she should not be the mother. In a discussion, you should do
Well,
everything. You should do everything that you can to keep your kids safe. Pinpoint, but if you see red flags in the mom, the kids being abused, that's for mothers and fathers alike. She should not be. She should not have those kids. She should not.
do you think that's a realistic way that society works? Because so the few people I know who have a situation where they trying to co-parent,
Mhm.
I hear one side of the story, right? So the side of the story I hear, I'm like, damn, she probably shouldn't have the kids based off the side of the story you telling. Do you think it's but the law tends to side with the custodial parent, which is usually the mom. By the way, nature is set up because the baby was with you from the beginning. You probably need to feed them from your body. But what do you think the baseline is for what constitutes a bad woman or a bad mom? Like, what's the bare, not the extreme, but the bare, like, once you cross this threshold, you enter into being a bad mom.
I think when we talk about extreme, not the extreme. I think that I actually want to table this for a second because I have a video. Matter of fact, do y'all want to do the men, or do you want to do the video because it's going to talk about what Marcus is talking about?
So
Because it's gonna no. This conversation goes with a video that I have. Okay, so
play the video.
So play the video, and then we can go to the men later. Okay, got you. Because it kind of does both, though. Okay, so it's gonna talk about men. It's gonna talk about this part. So let's stay on one accord, please. When we play the video, it's gonna talk about men, and it's gonna talk about this part. So what we're gonna do is gonna talk about this part first, and then we'll go into the man part. Okay? Could we please be on? Because we'll
yeah. So I wasn't gonna go into the men. I was gonna answer your question.
Right,
well. Marcus. Sticking on the women, but not touching on the men. Right.
So the video is going to say the same thing he just said. So I just hold it. I want you to keep your thoughts, write it down. And then I want you to, because I want to put some context to what you just said. It's kind of going to answer your question, but we can talk about it. Okay. A little bit. Just a little bit.
Part. You know what? I think a lot of us do say that. Like, you know, most men, especially the men that I know, because I know a lot of guys that were raised without their father in the house, and they say, you know, I'm gonna be a great father, I'm gonna be a great dad, but a lot of them aren't right immediately saying as well, I'm gonna be a great husband.
That's right.
So what's the disconnect there? Like, why do you think that? Why is that disconnect?
Because
there?
they don't even see they've never seen that relationship close up. They've seen, you know, we have 60% of households are raised by single mothers. I call them super single moms because I would never minimize what they do. As a mother with a husband for 40 years, it was difficult raising children. I can't even imagine doing it by myself. So those super single moms who raise those boys, some of them don't do the right thing. Some of them do a lot of the right things and more. And some of them do act as mom and dad the best they can. Mm-hmm. However, what ends up happening is they give a distorted picture of a normalizing family. Why? Because the super single moms will mask sometimes the level of pain it takes, the level of heartbreak maybe she has had to deal with, the level of what she has endured to actually run that household. So we will think it looks easier than it is. So we will see ourselves as optional.
Yeah.
And then the daughters will see themselves as, hey, I can do it all. And so they will actually confirm to that man that, yeah, I got this. And you were like, I guess there's no place for me. But in actuality, there is a place. We just need to have that place.
Okay, so my point in showing that was the end. Let's talk about the end and we'll go next to the beginning part, okay? So when you're saying, so the question was when women do it bad, okay? Well, go ahead, Marcus.
The question was the baseline,
of a
not an
bad parent.
extreme, of when does a woman cross over into becoming a bad woman or a bad mother? Like, what's the
In the baseline, so the baseline is when she can't control herself, overly emotional. It's just too much. It can be too much.
I would say
And too much can go to an extreme of things. Start yelling at kids. It's like that stress. Women are not, I don't think that women are designed to take on too much stress. I think that men are better at stress than women are. Okay. And I think that sometimes, and then I'm not talking, we're not talking about an extreme of things. We've seen extremes. We're talking about normal, what can happen. And sometimes that stress can come out, me lashing out at the kids because I'm so stressed because I have so many things. And so, like, I don't have time. Like, yes, what do you need? You know, it's a frustration because I'm trying to do too many things at one time. And it's like, you don't have time for the kids because you have to be at work, or there are other people who are pulling you because you have to do all of these things to make sure the kids are okay. But they don't understand that. They just want mom. They want you to be, so you may lash out and say things that you wouldn't normally say had you not had been in that stressful situation. And that happens a lot, you know. Because when I agree, some of the things, the reason why I felt like that video was so important, I think a lot of single moms have this thing where we try to make it seem so easy, and it's just not. It's not easy at all. It's not easy at all being a single. I know because I'm a single mom. It is not easy at all. It is a very, very hard task. It's a rewarding one because you love your kids. But that shit is hard as fuck. You know that, Marcus. I see you running around your little kids. Imagine if your wife was in there. It's just, it's hard. And people who act like it's easy, they don't take care of their kids. You can tell a person who don't take care of their kids when they're like, that ain't hard, because you got them on the weekend. You got them twice a week. You know, it's hard. And when people are stressed, they lack, and that's kids. They do that when they're stressed. Adults do it when they're stressed. When you are stressed and you're taking on something, unfortunately, the kid will, and the kid doesn't know that. They just know how they're being treated. That can be a bad experience for kids. And that's why it's important to have two parents in the household. I got you, babe. He, vice versa. It's not one person. It's, yeah.
I would say another thing that contributes to some women being bad moms is when they take the selfishness to the extreme, when their kids aren't put first. Now, I do think it's important as a mother, as a parent, that at times you do have to take time for yourself in order to minimize, like what Shan was saying, the stress factor of always having to be like, you know, on 10 with the kids. So it is important that at times you do put yourself first so you can regroup and come back. Fresher, you know, with a more calming state where you can deal with your kids. But I think it's where moms turn into bad moms is when that becomes the priority most of the time, where
dropping the kids off at grandmama's house all the time.
I put myself first all the time. I still want to live my life, so they drop them off at granny's house, things like that. I definitely think that you know makes some women a bad mom when you're doing that, when you fail to live up to your responsibility of taking care of your children. And I will also say the emotional aspect of dumping on your kids because you may not necessarily have the help, but then they become the friend, they become the spouse, they become your everything, and they're not there, you know, for that. So I also think that can make you a bad mom as well.
Yeah.
Just one thing I want to add real quick. And I know y'all are probably gonna come at me a little bit, but if the man's not hitting you, if the man's not cussing you out, the man's not hitting the kid, the man is not cussing the kid out, if the man is doing what he thinks he needs to do for the kid, and a woman just puts him out because they're in a bad way, right? Like they don't have the They don't have money. They broke. She's not living the lifestyle that she thinks that they should live. And she has that mantra, I can do bad all by myself. And she kicks the father of her son or daughter out of the home. I believe that in itself is a baseline for a bad mother as well.
Okay. I agree. But
And we see that way too often, I think.
yeah, but we have. I think the individual, like you can't have, like you can be a good man but cheating all the time. Like it is certain. Let's not just act like people just kicking people out for no damn reason. Like Susie just called 3 times in the middle of the night. Come on, now stop. Put
And
Susie on
So
the
you're gonna hate
put
my
Susie
opinion
on
on
the
this
list
because
and
this
tell
is
her to stop calling this out.
this is where I
It
agree
was a
with
joke. It was a
Inaz
joke, y'all.
though.
It ain't. It was a joke.
I know, I understand, but this is where I agree with Inaz. Two parents are better than one. Why are you putting him like I get it. He's busting something else down. Maybe he like again, like what was my baseline for a bad dude? Integrity and honesty. If dude like my thought is yo, hey baby, I'm sleeping with Monica. I can't control it. Whatever it is, I don't know because I think we have control over it. But you put him out, and you put him out forever. You make him have to fight for his kid. You know he doesn't have the resources to fight for his kid. That doesn't make you a good mom.
I agree. Go ahead, Ina.
So I appreciate what you said, AP. I do, and I agree with you for the most part. However, I think sometimes there are certain situations in this type of dynamic. It's so important to go case by case, right? Because you can have honesty and integrity, and still be the type of man who thinks that your paycheck is all that you need to cover your manhood. And as we know, most households require two paychecks. So there are so many circumstances where this woman is also working a full-time job and still takes 100% of the household duties, right? That man is not taking care of the kids. He's not doing anything, right? And so it's really difficult to tell someone, a woman in that scenario, that she can't do better by herself because when she leaves, she has one less person to take care of. They're not
You,
actually creating anything other than finances. I'm not advocating for people splitting up, right? All I'm saying is that that man can be honest about that. He can have integrity behind that, and it still not be enough to make a home work. He's not leading the household. He's using his paycheck to substitute his duties, right? So it can be non-physical, it can be non-verbal. He can be honest about it. He can be transparent about it, and it's still not work.
okay, I agree with you. Because what I thought we were talking about was the women's side. Y'all already know how I feel about a lazy, no good, raggedy ass man.
Oh yeah. So
Y'all already know how I feel about that. But I
he's
thought we
correct.
were kind of focusing
Stand
in
with the
on the
with the
females
woman.
at the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So some of the things you're right. If a woman's being selfish and she's just getting rid of a man because I don't like him no more, or I think I could do better, then I do believe that that is a situation in which she is wrong. Like she should not get rid of her husband because of you know.
So one more
I,
thing.
I
Sorry. I did want to kind of circle back to your comment earlier. I think to the original comment that started this conversation about like blaming single mothers, right? There's nobody else to blame because the single mother is the only person there. If we had families, we had a man raising these type of children, the man would then receive the blame, right? But because we don't have families anymore, the only person that is to blame is the person who's actually there raising the children. And I have compassion for the women who are doing their best. However, there just isn't anybody else there to talk about because there's nobody else doing the job. You can blame the C-suite in a like corporate organization, right? But if it's a small organization and there's only a CEO, you can't split the blame.
so in my opinion, I think for both people, the threshold is when 51% of your decisions are based around your happiness as opposed to the child at the bare minimum. When you've put yourself above your family, then at that point you become a bad father or a bad mother. And I think that's all encompassing, because it's a lot of sacrifices that you got to make on behalf of others. And if you've chosen to not make those sacrifices for your happiness, at that point you've become a bad parent, whatever that may be. If it's I want a better car, so I'm gonna work more hours instead of knowing my child needs behavioral lessons that they haven't been taught, and I need to put more work in with them. But instead of doing that, I'm going to prioritize making more money so we can just be in a better financial position, and you allow that child to suffer based off of your need to want to ball and flex or be looked at in a certain way. You've become a bad parent at that point. If you don't like the way a relationship is going, as far as just the communication that you and the person you're dating have or you're married to have, and you feel like, oh, I'm just not happy, but the kids are, in my personal opinion, when you place your happiness over the kids, I think at that point you can become a bad parent. If you prioritize, now if you never keep your word and you consistently tell, like, so that word thing is real important, because when a parent tell you something as a child, you want to hold them to it, whether it be, oh, I'm gonna come pick you up on the weekend. You know, as a kid, you would be in the hallway waiting on the parent the entire weekend, getting your heart broke every 5 to 3 minutes, just looking out the window. Every car passed by you. Oh, is that my mom? Is that my dad? And I don't think people realize how the weight that your words have on your kids. I think, yeah. So if you know you can't do something, please don't tell these kids they can. Please don't tell the kids you're gonna show up. Please don't promise them nothing.
I know
Just keep it to yourself.
Please don't. Psychologically, that's. Let me ask you a question real fast, Marcus. It was something that you said. How does one? Okay, so normally there will be two people in the household. Two. It's if we sit here and say, today in today's society, it takes two people to hold down a household. She's gonna have to work, right? Where do we draw the line from? Okay, when you're with a man, it's going to take two incomes in the household to bring in a woman who's a single mom having to work overtime or having to prioritize income because it's just her, so that the kids can go to a better school or live in a better neighborhood. You don't have to worry about people saying, oh, you just a single mom on welfare. Like, where do we draw the line with that?
I'd rather be a single mom on welfare to deal with my kids needed than somebody that balled out and didn't get what they needed. I don't think finance dictates that. So if you put that 50, when you crossed over from what the child actually needed, so when you wanted to live in luxury, that's 51% on the other side, I feel like.
So you don't. So we looked at a video a couple of months back, and the video was saying that your environment plays a big role on the outcome of your children. So a lot of women feel that way. If I get my kid out of a certain environment, if I can maintain a certain lifestyle, so my kid can go to a better school, so my kid can be around kids who, they'll think like these kids for the success of my child. What do you think about that? Because a person in poverty probably is going to be in an environment that is not going to be to
their best
absolutely.
best results. Remember, me and Inaz disagreed on that video. That was the one we disagreed on, and I think we had hit it from two different perspectives. Mine was one, I witnessed, because I had a chance to be around kids who parents gave them everything but time, and I had a chance to be around kids who parents didn't give them anything, like, at all. They wasn't even there, and what I found was the consistency between the two. And then and also around people who was in poverty, but their parents gave, like, both parents was there and gave them time. And what I found through what I was observing is that two parents time is better than two parents money. So that would be my mindset. But for one parent, you have to get them. Yeah, but for one parent, you have to get them the necessities. And I think what the necessities look like vary. Because, all right, so if I knew I would never be able to be around my child, but I could get them in the Beverly Hills, but I never would be able as a single person working, I would rather move to Iowa and split that in half, lower my cost of living, so I could still get them whatever I needed on a necessity basis, and then and you can move to Beverly Hills when they old enough. Like when they old enough that you didn't got them on their head. My grandfather used to always say this. He called me Wesley. He'd be like, Wesley, a bird got enough sense to build a nest before he lay an egg. So whatever that nest is, that's the important thing. It don't have to be a high-rise nest. It just needs to be a nest where you can securely have these kids safely.
Yeah,
And
and
we
that's
want to, and we want
like,
to. Okay, go ahead.
in terms of the environment, like you said, the environment has a big influence. But I think when we're talking about environment in that regard, we're looking at just the area that they live in. But the environment in the home, to me, has the biggest impact. So I've told y'all before that we grew up in the hood. We was in the hood, but we was not of the hood, because what was going on inside our house was totally opposite than what we saw outside of our house. So, that in-home environment, I think, will definitely have a much greater impact than the outside environment. So it is possible, and I've seen it, where you have kids that grew up in the hood, but they have great manners, they're respectful, they do the right thing. So they're not necessarily a reflection of the outside environment that they grew up in, but more so a reflection of the environment that was created in the home.
Well, I think that has a lot to do too with the village that's surrounded. A lot of people have their grandparents, they have their mom, they have their dad, they have lots of people who are raising them. You understand what I'm saying? I'm talking about the woman who is single. She has no husband. She does not have. It's just her in the household. She's got to go to work. Sometimes them people work extra hours, even in the hood. So it's gonna be times when she's not away. So what I'm saying to you is, would you rather your kid be in a safe neighborhood with you not being there than be in some place? Because you're not going to be there. Because even if you have to work at Walmart all day long, it still may not be enough, because you're still going to have to get extra hours, right? It's not like your hours are cut. You still got to put in the work, right?
So what do you think is different with doing that now with what parents did back in the day when we were latchkey kids? Like
I
they were
think
working,
yeah,
were
they
working all
yeah,
day.
yeah. I think the difference between when we were kids was there was a village, there was a neighbor who gonna tell on you, if something went down. Like my mom had eyes and she wasn't even there. My mom knew what went on in the house and she was nowhere to be found. You know why? Because my neighbor told her, this neighbor, that neighbor, my grandmother was there, my granddad was there. All these people played a role in the raising of your children. That's no more.
Mhm.
People mind their own business. Some people even know who their neighbors are.
So I know every neighbor on my block, and then
Marcus.
and then the like three behind me. What I'm saying is sometimes so if you move to a neighborhood that is full of people that you necessarily wouldn't gravitate to, I'll say it like that. If you move to a neighborhood where you don't know those people and you wouldn't necessarily gravitate to them, would you know them in that neighborhood?
I think in general we're not neighborly anymore. Like we're not
Exactly.
like. And when I first moved in the subdivision that I live in now, I can say that we knew, well, one neighbor is still there and we, love him. But we knew all of our neighbors that was like right in across the street in a cul-de-sac in our little area. But then as the older ones, they begin to move out and new ones move in, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know the newer neighbors. And I just think in general we have become less neighborly. Everyone is more about, let me just mind my own business. And so we don't reach out to our neighbors, getting to know our neighbors, wanting to even know who our kids are around. Like before I was able to go to a friend's house that my mom didn't know, it was like, let me speak to their mom, let me speak to their dad, are the parents there? Like, you're not going over there, I need to check. I don't think a lot of those things are happening anymore. Like my son used to get mad because I would be like, Mom, come on. No, I need to know whose house you're at. You know what I'm saying? I need contact numbers, those kind of things, because that was the way that I raised, and it was important to know who your kids are around, and who are who are their friends, or who they being raised by. I want to know that information, but I don't see a lot of that happening anymore.
Do you think, I don't know the demographic of your the neighborhood, right? But do you think, like, you used to live in New York, right?
Mhm.
What was the demographic of that neighborhood that you were staying in?
Majority Black, but Puerto Rican, Black
Did
and
you know most of the people around you, like in your immediate vicinity?
yeah, I would say like on my floor, like our building was like 13-story, so I mean on the floor that we lived on the side of the building floor that we lived on, we pretty much knew our neighbors. Yeah.
Is there a different demographic in the neighborhood that you live in now?
Yeah. Coming to
Do you
this
know most of the people around you?
no. Mm-mm.
That's the point I was trying to make
Mhm.
about how we will create our community amongst us, but if you move to another area, then that sense of community can be lost for the perception. Well, for a lower crime rate, right? Because it's gonna be most times it is an actual lower crime rate. You can't deny that. But yeah, that was my point. I appreciate you for explaining that mistake.
Mhm.
All right, you guys. So let's move on. We're gonna do the super chats. And we're gonna move on to the men.
Mhm.
Sexy, sexy. I'm just some of them.
Harrison Davis, where you at, dude? The
Right,
fake AP.
right. So
499. Salute. Oh, I'm sorry. You
no,
got
go
your
ahead.
glasses on. I didn't realize you had glasses today. All right, nope, you got glasses.
No, go ahead, Marky Mark. I love to not, just have this is a
All
group
right.
effort.
Salute. Y'all have a fantastic night. I'm not coming because I prioritize something else other than this. Probably the opera or the movies. Lord Gia tried with the 2. A good man is one who is willing to die for others. Laying your life down.
Die for you.
Lord Gia trying again with the 2. The phrase emotional intelligence is hogwash. Lord Gia trying with the 2 again. Be a real woman and be submissive to men's headship. Lord Gia trying with the 5. Men don't just up and leave their children or family. They leave to avoid hurting an unruly, disrespectful woman who puts her happiness above all else.
So you leave your kids for that? That don't make
He got Lord Gia trying. He go super chat and he'll explain it some more.
that's not smart.
But it sounds like he's doing the same thing he's accusing her of. In a sense
What?
of putting himself first as opposed to
Oh,
Putting the kids.
putting his first.
yeah, he could probably super chat and explain that some
So
more.
you leave because you don't like the mother, upset with the mother, or whatever, don't like the mother.
He said, F them kids.
Right, so you're
I don't
like,
like your mama.
F the mama
So
and the kids too.
I think the
so
caveat was violence. He put violence on there too. To
so
avoid
I understand. I understand what he's saying, but my guy, this is where you're wrong. You have to learn that emotional control. I don't like the word emotional intelligence. It's emotional control. Number one, you chose a woman. If you chose her, you should have an understanding, and you should have done your due diligence in finding out the kind of woman that she is before you decided to plant your seed. Once you planted your seed, my guy, it is your responsibility to figure the rest of that stuff out, bro. You got to stick it through. And no, don't you don't cuss her out, you don't demean her, you don't manipulate her, and you don't put your hands on her. You got to have more emotional control than that. And that's period point blank to all men. And I know we weren't really on the subject of men yet, but I want to address that. I can't
We're going
Mm.
stand
into
it when we
right
make an
now, so you're
excuse.
fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hate it when we make an excuse. Oh, I left because the woman was unruly and things were going to get out of order. Keep yourself in order so they don't get out of order. You run your house, my bro. I understand that sometimes a woman can antagonize you. I get it. I get it, but you got to control yourself And controlling yourself doesn't mean you leave, because you still have kids that you have to raise. So you got to figure it out. If that means that you go to couples counseling, you do it. If that means you go to solo counseling, you do it. If that means that you have to try to get her to singles counseling, you got to get her there. But your job as a man is to stay there and raise your kids. Shit, don't leave that up to another dude that's gonna have to go back in behind you when you guys are gonna probably fight, and you're gonna say, "Hey, those are my kids," and all the other BS that happens. No, you dropped your seed, then you gotta see your garden through, bro.
Do you think men men don't know how to separate leaving the woman as opposed to leaving his children?
The way is that the question?
Yeah,
Well,
that's
he know that
Okay.
man.
So what I think happens far too often, I think a man can leave a woman, but a woman will do quite a bit or do what she can to prevent a man from seeing his kids. I think that happens pretty doggone often, and he has to fight to even see his kids. Like we can't continue to downplay how often that actually happens, which is why I say, bro, stick it out, even if it's for 18 years. I mean, shit, you got to do what you got to do. You did it. Nobody else did it. You did it. You had the choice. You decided to go in bare and say, "Oh, I'm not pulling out." You didn't get it the morning after or whatever else, the other contraceptions that they have. You didn't do any of that, bro. It's on you. And I place 150% of the blame in those scenarios on the guy.
And it's so funny. What here goes right here. And it goes to this. The courts give the woman too much power when it comes to children. You know where your power is? Being the head of the household, marrying her. That's your power.
Oh, I agree with you on that.
That
Shannon.
is your power. If you married a woman, you have all power because that's your household. Now, to think that you're going to have power over somebody else's household and you're not the man in the household, you might as well give that up. But if you marry her and you take on your family, you got power.
I don't know what it is about this hat, but when I read a comment like this, you know, going into the relationship that the courts give the woman too much power. You know it going in. If you know that going in, then that means you need to use your sense to protect yourself, sir. That means wrap it up. If she say, "Nah, you don't need to," do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we like? We got to quit complaining and talking about stupid foolishness when we have so much control. The women this, the women that. Yeah, I get it. After the kid is born, all bets are off. If you didn't do the stuff that you needed to do in regards to vetting the woman prior to popping your seed, but you had the control prior to that. But you wanted some wet yum yum, and you wanted to go ahead and do what you wanted to do. And what happens after that is literally everything that you did prior to that led to that situation, sir. I'm done for a minute. I'm sorry.
So, all right. So, I just need somebody to maybe I don't know if we can drop the link or whatever, but I don't understand. Like, I got
Take your time,
privilege.
Pastor. Take your time.
No, I'm gonna leave it alone because I think I got privilege, and my question is gonna be disingenuous. So
Go
I'm not.
ahead. Go ahead. Ask. Just ask. Come on.
I don't understand how we get in a situation where we gotta beat these women up.
Say it one more time. That's a great question.
I like.
Let me hear the question again. Say the question again.
I don't understand how we get in a situation where we end up having to fight, like physically fight with the women. That's why I'm trying to. I would need somebody to explain that to me, like it's the sequential order of how that happens. Like maybe if I heard the sequential order, I could be like, all right, so at step 5, you should have done XYZ just to find a solution. Right?
So
step 5.
Marcus, can I give you
Because for the kids, they was banging each other happily. They was on the phone, probably chopping it up, going to dinner. You know,
Marcus,
happiness.
I'm gonna give you a scenario. I have seen it with my own two eyes. The guy didn't hit the chick, but this is where those situations come up. But I want to address Tyrell first. You said, hold on. I want to roll up. I want to say it right. I want to say what you quoted, sir. Do. These women will do you like his hat. Dirty. I'm gonna tell you what's awesome about this hat. I bought this hat. I bought this hat when I bought my daughter's softball pants. I have not missed a game ever. And I wear this hat to every game. So, yeah, it's going to be dirty, sir, because some of us stay involved with our kids, sir. So you can kiss my ass and I'll keep wearing this hat. Now,
okay, AP.
Now, onto Marcus's question. I'm going to try to paint a picture and you tell me when to stop so you can interject, all right?
Yeah.
All right. The guy comes home from work, walks into the house. Woman is having a hard time dealing with the kids. She said, "Hey, I want you to take your kids for a minute. I just need to relax." He says, "Sure." He takes the kids. She wakes up sometime in the middle of the night, and the dude is asleep on the couch. Baby's laying on his chest, and the other one's in the plaything asleep. She gets mad because the baby is on his chest. She snatches the baby up. She then goes to argue, "I just wanted a few hours to sleep, and you couldn't even do that. You went to sleep on the kids." So they start fussing back and forth, back and forth. The man says, "F this," and tries to walk out of the house. The woman says, "Hey, where are you going?" Grabs a pan, a frying pan, and hits the man in the back of the head with said frying pan.
This is crazy.
This is a true story, bro.
This is some crazy. This is some craziness.
This is a true story. I know. I'm the one that went and picked him up.
Oh, shoot.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry if this. I'm sorry to laugh, but this is crazy as hell. Wait, so you mean to tell me? Hold on. So wait, they was in the house. Let me just make sure I got the sequence of events correct. They was in the house. He came home from a hard day at work. She was tired, being exhausted with the kids. She said, "Hey, I need you to help me with the kids." He said, "Sure, babe, I got you." She goes and lays down. He's on the couch playing with the baby, falls asleep. The baby is on his chest, right? How old is the baby? How old is the baby?
The baby at the time was 6 months old, give or take like a week or two.
This is the first child?
It's their second child. The other baby is 2 years old in the like the playpen thing that's in front of the couch.
So I do understand, like when you have new babies, you be real paranoid about their breathing, and you be thinking because they can't hold their neck up, you be like, "Oh my God, make sure you know what I'm saying? You put them in a place where they don't roll over and suffocate, because that can't happen. They can't suffocate like that." So I could see her freaking out from the stance of the baby could have died. But once you see the baby is okay, the fussing should have stopped right there. Like, all right, so that's where it stops, the fussing, right? So when she get to saying, can you give me like some a mock scenario of what the woman would be saying, and I could be the guy in this situation?
So keep in mind, I was not inside the house. So, damn. But what I do know about these two, they both got mouths. They both talk shit. So she was going off, and he was.
Can you give me an example so I could try? I want to play this thing out because I ain't gonna be in this situation. So it's gonna
I'm gonna do my best then. "You ain't shit. I just wanted to take a damn nap, and you ain't worth a shit. You over here sleeping, and the kid is laying on you, and you know the baby got a crib upstairs. All you got to do is put the baby in the crib. Bitch, what the fuck are you talking about?"
Oh, hold on. This my part. This my part.
Okay.
This my part.
Okay, yeah. I got it. Okay, we can role play it. Got you.
Right. Damn, I was tired too, but you know what? You're right. This shit is dangerous. Let's bring him upstairs.
"Well, it's too late. I'll do it now. I'm shit. I'm up now. You decide to go to sleep. You ain't shit. You sorry motherfucker. You."
That's harsh.
I don't care. I just wanted to sleep. You know, I've been here all day.
Marcus, you're
Let
right.
me-
Because
let
you
me-
This is real shit that happens, bro.
some women can, but for most people, you can't argue by yourself. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I know I would be the cause. Like I'm taking it out on my husband because I'm stressed. I might say like he say something, and then I'm like, yeah, here you go again. And it really had nothing to do with him. And I think he's gotten to the point where he's learned me so well
that he don't even listen.
that he'll do stuff like that. What Marcus just did, and I don't know why, but I'll get even more mad. Like,
Hey, no, look, that shit caught me off guard because that's some shit that I would do. I'm like, wait,
engage, because I'm just stressed or upset, so I'm trying to get it off. But he won't engage, and it does. It just shuts it down.
It
Like
does.
you'll try to get that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, because you're trying to get that last, but it just doesn't. It doesn't work. So Marcus's approach would have definitely probably shut that down. But like you said, because both of them got mouths, and there are times I would say earlier in our relationship where me popping off wasn't gonna work because he was gonna pop off too, and that didn't get us anywhere. It really didn't.
And let me too, because I want to, because I do believe that there's situations that happen. But I have seen videos, and I'm gonna see if JR can pull these up. Where I've seen on 2 occasions where one woman, she had 3 kids, and I guess they were his children, and he kicked her out because she questioned where he was that night before. Did y'all see that video?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I seen that video.
He kicked her and the 3 kids out, all because she asked him why you get home so late. There was a second video.
Skit. It was a skit. Let's
Oh.
not forget
You
that.
think that was a skit?
Yeah.
Oh no, she was
sitting on some white stairs right in front of the door.
Well, we can pull it up. We can no. We can pull it up. I think that
throwing her clothes out the house and
he
everything.
was throwing her clothes out the house. She was like, get the baby. And sometimes you can
That's
tell.
emotional though. That's some overly emotional stuff. Because even if you wanted her to leave, there's no need for you at that moment to grab her stuff and start throwing it out the window and throwing. Like, come on now. Like, this is like, come on. We gotta have more control. All right. So when you see 2 kids fighting, it required, like, your teenage kid don't really fight with your toddler. Somebody got to be the adult in the room. Somebody got to be the adult. Like, come on now. We can't be sitting here going back and forth.
Last night,
Tyrell is right. Real quick, that scenario just now. Pause.
We actually got into it over something so. It was over the TV. He has to sleep with the TV on. I don't like it on, so we go back and forth with how loud it is or whatever. We got into an argument because he was like, "See, when I'm trying to go to sleep and you have the TV up, I ask you to turn it down. You get, you don't really turn it down. But when it's me, then you expect me to do it. But I'm like, you're not really going to sleep. There's a difference." That's how, so we going back and forth for that, where I just finally was like, you know what, forget it. I'll just go in the other room and watch TV. And
I know what your problem was, mistaken.
So
I know why you telling this story. I already know what your problem is, and that's a different issue. You wanted some. Yeah, that was your problem.
You want to think of making up.
She wanted. You know how she be thinking.
He actually, that time he did, and I said no because I don't like drunk. I don't like it real drunk. But anyway, so I go in the other room, and he in there, and I hear the TV on. He's listening to his phone, got the TV, and I'm like, what was the point? You were saying you were going to sleep. And I got up to leave to respect the fact that this is what I would like you to do when it's me. And he was just like, nah. He was like, I was just playing with you, but you got all serious. And it was an argument for no reason. But like what Marcus was saying today, he sent me a text, was like, thank you, babe. And I'm like, for what? Just for being you. That was it. And I'm like, I thought I wasn't good, like trying to start it. He's like, I love you. I'll see you later when you get home. Bye. And that was it. So I think that's part of being a leader, is like kind of what Marcus was saying in terms of learning how to be control your emotions, right? Because if he didn't control his emotions, it would allow me to continue to be on, and not saying that I shouldn't control mine. Don't get me wrong. I can't put him
Toxic
on the
in the chat.
spot. Yeah, I can't put him on the spot to say it's his responsibility to control my emotions. It's not. But the fact that he's able to control his kind of automatically puts me in a place that I end up having to control mine, is what I'm saying. So
You got the ability to
And
think.
sometimes, Marcus, because I don't want to get too off the subject, you're absolutely right. I think that was a great solution to making sure that people are the same. But there are also scenarios on the subject about how, we've seen videos also, the young lady who was pregnant, he didn't want her anymore. And we've seen that too. Just because I don't want you to mean I don't want my kid. Why you got to be, I ain't got to be with you. You can't keep me away from my kid. We have those scenarios too. So we have good men like AP is mentioning where you have arguments. And you also have men who just, and it goes back into the video. And I guess that's my first question for the men. Do you think so the scenario with the video was, do you guys need me to play it again? Just that first half, or do you want me just to? No. Okay. So do you think that men, because he may clip it. Let me play the video again because he may clip it and so the video needs to come. Okay. So let me just play just the first half. Okay. Is it okay? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Part. You know what? I think a lot of us do say that. Like, most men, especially the men that I know, because I know a lot of guys that were raised without their father in the house, and they say, I'm gonna be a great father, I'm gonna be a great dad. But a lot of them aren't right immediately saying as well, I'm gonna be a great husband.
That's right.
So
do you think that and it goes back to the situation that you guys were seeing, the scenario, do you think that's because it's lack of presence to see how a husband would handle a situation with a wife that's being missing? Like, so when you're raised by a single mom, you don't see the dynamic between a man and a woman, how you're supposed to diffuse situation, how you're supposed to handle a situation, the relationship part, not the kid part, but the relationship part.
So most of the men that I be arguing with, well, not arguing with, but having a discussion with about why they fighting with the women, it's a weird reason that they always tell me. They always go back to they want it to be equal, we're equal, so now we gonna fight. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if any of y'all ever heard that before, but I'll be like, why are you going back and forth with them? They women, like, tell them to go, like, just like go. Like, no, I'm not about to sit here and with you all day. They be like, no, she want to be equal. We equal now, so I'm gonna fight with her. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it's because they never seen men operate with women in the household. But my father died when I was real young, so I didn't see that either. Maybe I need to ask the question where I got that I'm not about to be fighting with these women from. That might be a better question. Yeah, I could probably answer that for myself. I need to think about this. Come back to me.
Marcus, so I want to say I agree with him, but I never said either one of those statements. I never really thought about either one of those statements. And in each scenario, for me, I was already a husband before there was a kid. So I was a terrible one, but it was, and most of my friends were the same. So I most of them, and I never really heard them say I'm gonna be a great father. I'd hear things like I'm gonna be the best dad I can be. I guess I would have to kind of agree with the guy in the video. It may be due to a lack of that presence in the home. I know in my case there really wasn't my biological dad in the house. So that's something I'm gonna have to think on for real. For real. I'm gonna have to think on that.
Just in my opinion, I don't know, I'm not a man, but just from observation, I would think that it's easier for a man to identify saying, I'm going to be a great dad versus I'm going to be a great husband, is because as a child growing up without a father in a home, you are able to see and feel the direct impact it will have on you by not having your dad there. So you can actually feel that experience. Whereas I don't think you don't realize that not having a man in a home, in terms of saying I'm going to be a great husband, that doesn't necessarily have a direct impact on you the same way, because as a child you feel what it's like as a child to not have a father. So you say, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to make sure I'm going to be a good dad, because you have direct experience. Whereas being a husband, that's kind of more a indirect experience where you would have to visually see what that looks like, and in order to say kind of like, oh, I'm going to be a great husband, I'm going to be a good husband. So I think that might be something that impacts the difference on why it's easier for a man to say I'm going to be a good father versus being a good husband.
I just want to say this real quick. I figured it out. I was trying to figure out why. I'm like, so this is the main reason why I'm not arguing with those women for that scenario. I know this might be off topic, but or maybe it's still on topic. I don't know. I was trying. It is. It's not. All right. No.
We want to hear it though. Go ahead, Marcus.
Violent.
It's gonna chirp away at you.
Yeah. I was gonna be thinking about it more and more. It's violent. It's violent. So when I was growing up, I never was one to really sit back and argue. You say something to me, I'm gonna beat your ass. It was that simple. You wanna get it cracking, we just go get it cracking. We can play with guns, we can do all of this. I don't look at women as combatants. So it's kind of like when little dogs be yapping at the cane corso, and you look down at them like, I'm not about to kill you. I'm not about to hurt you. So I don't see them in the same. Like men, I can engage in violence with. I can't engage in violence with women the way my brain is set up. So I'm not about to argue with you, because you can say whatever you want. I can't go with my move. There's no way I can escalate this to the point I want to escalate it to. So it's no point. Like go on somewhere. Like you just go somewhere. Go somewhere. Just go. Like if this was a man and you had the potential to get it cracking, okay, keep talking. And I'm gonna make you everything you saying, you're gonna have to stand on. But I can't make a woman stand on it. I'm not fighting her. So I don't even got to. She want to get loud or angry or whatever. Go on about your business.
Look here, bro. It's popping next time I hit the shot, cuz.
She's like, you a non-factor. Like, I don't register as far as violence is concerned. So it don't matter to me. Like, you just like, it's like a baby. I'm not about to fight a baby. All right.
Wait a minute.
I love that. So to the video, I have a slightly different theory behind it, right? Because we see this time and time again where not all, but some single mothers will substitute their sons as the man of the house and almost treat them like a partner. For better or worse, there's the quote unquote good side of it where they just treat that boy like their husband. And then there's the negative side of it, the super negative side of it, where the things they would like to say to the father of their children, they say to this child, right? So there's the two opposite ends of both of them being bad. That being said, I think that some of the men in these situations internalize that as what partnership looks like. So in their heads, they've already have it figured out of the dynamic between men and women. And so now the focus is the child, right? And you see it because they replicate the same interactions between them and their mother with them and the women that they choose. If their mother was the type of woman to you ain't nothing, you just like your father, yada, 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 yada. And it's just to what Marcus was saying, it's like the chihuahua that keeps yapping. They tend to pick women like that. And if the mother was the one who was overly doting and spoiling him, they tend to try to pick women who are, I won't say submissive because like that puts a negative spin on submission, but like subservient and are willing to take on too much, right? And so in their heads, they've already got the whole like partnership thing figured out. And because of the dynamic of the mother being the parent and then being the child, and then there's still this weird parentification of them, it almost becomes like a non-factor where like, I don't care nothing about that. I already know how to be a father, so I'm going to be a great father because they've been put in that role. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's so funny that you say, because a part of that clip, if I would have played it on, she kind of mentioned that, women putting kids into the father, and that kind of deters them because they think that that's how the relationship is going to be when they get older. So I agree. It does make sense. Anybody else wanted to give their opinion on that? So why do? Because I know you said you haven't heard people say that, AP, but I have heard men say that, like, I'm gonna be a better father than my dad. Like, I'm gonna be there for my kid. Like, I'll never not be there for my kid because their dad wasn't there. But I don't hear many men, not, I've heard some men, don't get it twisted, but not many that say, you know what, I'm gonna be the best husband.
You know who I heard who say they're gonna be a good husband?
Oh.
Men who had, and this is just my personal experience, that boys who have had dads in the home. That's where I've heard I'm gonna be a good husband. So I think because they had an example, and even if the example was a bad example, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, it was, I'm going to be a better husband than what my father was, right? One of those kind of situations. So I've definitely heard guys, not a whole lot, I'm gonna be honest about that, that said that they were going to be good husbands, but it was typically when it was a dad in the home.
And you know what's so funny? Because I heard what you said, Marcus. You were saying, "Well, I didn't have that because your dad had died early on, but your mom and your dad were married, right?" But I think that comes with a sense of programming, as you knew how to do it because your mom and your dad were married. Obviously, an unfortunate event took place, but you saw that foundation. You saw a woman who had a husband who is now a widow carrying on, but there was a reason for that. You know what I'm saying? You didn't see dysfunction. That's just happened. That's just life happening. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, I think it's just different. It's totally different from being raised without that, your parents being married, if it makes sense,
No, I know what you're saying. I did not live in the house where I seen the relationship this one, but every when I went outside, I seen a lot of. I wouldn't say the man was in the house, but I would see the result of because them relationship fights would spill out into the streets a lot of times. I'd be witnessing them fighting in the street. Only thing I could think about was this. I'm never I look for indicators, right? Or things to help you predict behavior. And there's certain things you can see, like this, like the Keke Palmer thing. I could see this. If you met her mom before, you could see how that relationship was gonna play out. You know what I'm saying? It's certain things that's gonna tell you, like, hey, this is gonna be one of them. And just avoid those type of, you know what I'm saying? Like, just don't date that type of woman. Or that type of man. If you see the indicators that's letting you know, like, no, this ain't gonna go right. Just avoid. One thing when people say, I'm always weary when people say, oh, there are no good women, there are no good men. It's a good chance that you're repelling the good people. Because like, have you ever like heard somebody be like, man, I'm looking for something, and you might know somebody, but you're like, oh, I wouldn't hook them up with you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Or that could be the real issue. So people need to internally reflect and fix issues on the inside.
For sure. Anybody else?
9 times out of 10, that's where it starts. Even I would say, even with the blame game, this whole like gender war thing or what have you, is this blame game going back and forth when the issue truly is a need to fix self. You know what I'm saying? Like, the men to blame the women for being single moms while at the same time creating single moms. You know what I'm saying? So the issue really isn't the mom per se and raising bad kids. When you look at it, yes, they have ownership in that, but also the men. But when the women are blaming the men and saying, well, they need to step up, they need to be a father, they need to do da da da. Is it true? Yes, it is. But on the flip side of that, you have some ownership in that as well, because if you did choose this guy and he was showing you that he's probably not going to be that dude that's going to be responsible, you do have to take ownership in that. But that doesn't necessarily let the guy off the hook. He shouldn't abdicate his responsibility because he took part in creating a child, right? So, but we're trying to find a person who's at fault. You know what I'm saying? But it's not. It's both of y'all. So you got to fix yourself first before we can even get to a place where we can, work in harmony with each other. Nobody wants to take responsibility for their own actions. And I think that's the bigger problem.
We saw a video. This is the issue though, and I think it's missed sometimes. Not in the red pill space, but I think women miss it sometimes. We saw a video just last week with the one dude with the how many kids he have? 6 kids, 9 kids, something like that.
No,
Or the
With-
kid from last week.
it
He had
was
like
yeah,
it was like the guy we showed last week.
yes.
It was like
it was like
20 of them.
But the point is that there were so many different women that were involved in that scenario. So the guys in this red pill space, and you can understand their argument when they say, "Yo, you kind of like you pick this dude, like it's on you when you pick a guy like that has that kind of history. When you pick the Nick Cannons of the world and the Futures of the world and whoever the guy last weekend and even on this panel, we were like, I paused by the way. He was a handsome dude. None of those kids were ugly. Like it sounds like it was almost a justification for that type for it to be okay when we all know it's not okay.
So
You know
let
what
me
I'm saying?
So we talked about polygamy a while back, right? And we talked about only a few guys that women see fit to be. So we don't know this man. Obviously, if all them kids knew each other, were siblings, they probably all got a relationship with each other. We don't know. Somebody put that video together like, hey, they probably got a group chat going on. We don't know what this man life is. He could have like a whole poly situation going, and they all like, we're a part of it. So the great thing about
Possible.
it is they
That's
know
possible.
each other, and they were happy to be a part of the video. Just look like happy kids. So it's kind of hard to say because there's just so many different dynamics. But you're right. If you're a woman and you're just picking off certain things, because women do, we did talk about that. Women do take DNA samples and try to make their kids, what they want them to be. Okay. But I'm gonna let you go, Enos. But again, how and that goes back into how does that work if there are not enough guys that I don't know, but go ahead, Marcus, because I don't want to get into this poly situation because I know that's where it's going to be.
I have done 2 weeks where I have done 2 weeks where I didn't even say there's a solution for that, and y'all been saying it. And every time it come up, I'm like, I wonder. Yesterday it was a scene. I was like, I know mistaken. Like, there's a solution for that. It really is. Hey, you lead a horse to water.
Go ahead.
I ain't thirsty.
This is what leadership looks like, right? When you just like ingrain the programming or just becomes automatic. But what I wanted to say to AP and your question, especially in this space, right? When you hear so many men talk about, well, what's the benefit of marriage? What do men get out of marriage? Why should we marry you? It's too much of a problem. It's too much of a risk. And women hear this programming all the time about how men do not want to get married. why then would women not choose the man who is either going to give them good looking kids or the man who's going to be involved from a distance, right? If the programming, because men are the ones who hold the key to marriage, and these women are already not chaste women, may already have other children, right? And in this space in particular, those are non-starters. What is then the incentive for women to better themselves who are already in this position to then require marriage when the men who are criticizing these women for choosing these men are saying we wouldn't marry you anyways? Does that make sense? Does the question make sense, or do you need a little more?
No, I can understand the logic and the the irony to me is the guys that are saying that are married. But we see that a lot in the space. These hosts, they host these shows, and it's like, oh, I'm married, but yeah, these chicks ain't. Anyway,
You know, he's right. I see what he's saying. He's talking about podcasters who spill the information. You're right. Some of them are married. But go ahead.
but there's no really like. I see the logic, so it's really difficult for me to argue. Um,
And you know what? I would argue too. Just add to this for you, AP, to think about. Just like men say it is natural for, and we probably mentioned this too, natural for them to want to have sexual encounters with women. It's natural for women to want to reproduce because it's just you know, that's, she's a mother. She wants to be a mother. She wants to be, so both are going to get, you know, but the problem is the commitment, the marriage, you know, we're out here doing, but that's the part, for whatever reason, that's the issue.
this is what I will say to Inaz. If that is the path you chose because of what you have heard on some of the social media platforms, and you made the conscious decision that you just wanted the kid, I don't ever want to hear you complain about a man being in the life of that kid. Like, you lose all right to complain. You lose all right to really say anything when that was the conscious decision that you decided to make. As for men continuously saying, you know, I don't see the point of marriage, then you can't complain as a man when you are an incel. If you don't see the point of marriage, then shit, if you're not getting sex, like, you can't really complain then. You don't have to, like, you forfeit that right if you're not out looking for the wife.
AP, I
So I
think
just
no. Go ahead, Inaz.
thank you. So I just want to make the distinction between the incels and the other red pills, right? Because there are red pill men who do have access to sex, who are having sex, who still share the same belief system as the men who don't have access to sex, right? So we got to include them because they still share the same talking points. So we got to include them in the conversation because my point behind this is that they're not choosing these women to begin with, and yet there's still this level of criticism as if they were going to choose these women.
Again, I believe you forfeit that right to really say anything when you are participating in the behavior that you're saying that you stand against. Like, that to me is a true hypocrite, and it's hard to have a true conversation or a true dialogue or even a true debate when you're not being honest in that debate. I'm gonna bust women down, but women are hoes. Make that make sense to me. What, like, you can't bust them down if they're not hoes?
That's kind of like what Marcus was saying. You're creating a problem and the solution at the same time. Like, you're trying to complain about something that you're creating, but then blaming the fact of the outcome of that situation on the other person that participated.
Yeah,
Uh,
these women ain't. Yeah, these women aren't marriageable. But I'm just gonna keep screwing them because these women aren't marriageable because they're unruly and they like to have promiscuous sex. Meanwhile, I'm having promiscuous sex with. I'm being promiscuous with all of these various women. Make it make sense, Sway.
mhm.
It really can't be both. It just you are a hypocrite to me, and you're being disingenuous in your argument.
Hmm.
And I
Well,
don't know how many of those people I actually listen to, so I'd have to research those guys. But most of the time when I see it, it's unless it's the whatever podcast, which that guy isn't married, but I don't know how if he's out doing his thing. But most of the guys that I subscribe to are all married, and it's the people that come up on their panel that I kind of view more on the incel side of things.
mm,
But
yeah.
you don't want to get married, so I don't like
But but but
you
but
lose your argument.
even without the podcast route, the numbers show that that must be in the minds of many African American men
Well,
because
that's what I was gonna say, Shan, is that what I'm finding is that is two camps. It's either men who have never been married and just had unsuccessful relationships, or men who've been married and their marriage wasn't successful. Because you don't hear, at least I haven't heard men in successful marriages saying the degree to the same things that these other men are saying. Now, what I do hear them say things that I think it's more just when you're dealing with a woman, like just some average stuff, oh my goodness, they don't put the stuff away. Oh, she's a nagger, right? Like, I think that that's kind of some general stuff like that you're here just no matter what. But when a man is in a happy marriage, you don't hear the same things that these men who have been in a marriage and the marriage was unsuccessful or have never been married before. So the ones that are pushing like, how does it benefit me, is because they have never had a relationship that was that successful that would give them an inkling of why a marriage is beneficial. When we had that conversation with Marcus, he was able to rattle stuff off like that because he's in a happy marriage. So I think that's part of the problem. It's hard, like how you said earlier, you don't know what kind of mom you will be or how to be a mom until you actually become a mom. So I think a lot of these men are speaking from the point of not being a husband or not having or have had a partner that really operate and work with them the way a wife would. Well, let me specify and say a good wife, a good wife would. So I think that is part of the problem. They're speaking from a perspective of ignorance. And I don't mean ignorant like in a bad way, just the ignorance in terms of not knowing, not having that knowledge.
and my thing
Yeah.
is this
Oh, go
too.
ahead.
I mean, I think, and I wish Marcus was here so he can help. Yeah, this young man, he can say, because you're gonna hear it tonight, because Marcus is gonna tell you some great things about marriage when he gets back. But I think that the crazy thing is, okay, you complain about marriage, but you also complain about not being married. Like you're still complaining. Oh, she's this, she's that, she's that. Oh, she's for the street. She's not even your woman. So who cares if she's for the street? She ain't yours. So it's like, when is the argue? Like you're not satisfied either. It just seems like there's no satisfaction. Period. Whether you're married or you're single, there's always a complaint.
Indu
Never.
point, I don't know. I think that's the other problem too, is that you're not going to have any relationship where you don't have problems, right? Like it's just inevitable. So when they say
Yeah,
things
two
like I
people who in
heard,
friendships have problems at times.
right, like I never heard a married person, say anything good about. No, it doesn't mean, even if you have I would say that I have a healthy marriage. I would say that I would have a happy marriage. I don't like saying happy now that me and my husband actually had a conversation about that, because we know that a happiness is a fleeting emotion, right? But so I'll prefer to say a healthy marriage as opposed to a happy marriage. We do have happy moments, but we also have bad moments. We also have moments where, you get that ebb and flow. So when you're married, it doesn't mean that every single time, every day you wake up, you're married, you're going to be in a good space. You know what I'm saying? You don't even be in a good space as an individual sometimes waking up. So when you're in a marriage, it doesn't mean that every day is going to be, bliss. The thing is that, do I have a solid partner? Can we work through the issues that we have? Are we still respectful of each other as we're going through those issues? You know what I'm saying? Am I putting the other person, being considerate of the other person's feeling, like things like that, to make the marriage stable? So when you do go through those hard times, it's easier to move through it, as opposed to trying to like not have, when you're going through things and not having somebody, there for you. Like I couldn't imagine at this stage of my life, I could not imagine my life without my husband. Like when they say two become one, when you really pour into that to create that, like you cannot see yourself without your other half. And I think a lot of men and women may not have experienced that, so can't really understand what that looks like or what
I
that.
just want to make a real quick point before your Nas goes. I think the statement in itself is kind of disingenuous. And the reason I believe that is because most of the time these guys are listening for something that they want to hear instead of hearing exactly what is said about marriage. No, like in life isn't easy. So don't expect marriage to be easy. Like there's nothing that's ever going to be handed to you. Everything in life takes work. So expect to work in marriage. But on the other side of that, could you imagine? I'm just going to give you a scenario real quick and I'll let Inaz go. You're sitting at work, you forgot to bring your lunch, and suddenly your wife just shows up with lunch because she thought maybe you would be hungry because she noticed you left your lunch at home. So now you don't have to spend money to go to buy lunch. You have somebody thoughtful. You're about to have a great conversation on your lunch because you're not going to marry somebody that you can't at least have a real conversation with. You're going to have this great dialogue. You're going to get a kiss before you go back into the office. Everything's going to be so super dope. The rest of your day is going to be awesome because she brightened up your day. Those are the little things that are great about being married to the right chick. And that's just something small. I mean, I could go on, but that is just something small, bro. But that's not what you're listening for. What you want is great sex every night of the week. You wanted to be able to throw it up on the ceiling and push it back and drop it like it's hot every night of the week. Because as a single man, if you really went out and tried to get that, you probably could if you really hunted it down. You want to only be responsible for you. You are no longer just responsible for you. You're responsible for somebody else. But guess what? That person's also responsible for you, bro.
And you know what's so funny?
That's just y'all, like they just look to hear something that they're not gonna hear because it just doesn't work the way they want it to
And
until
you
they
know,
find that person.
and you know what's so funny? I do think kids have a lot to do with marriage, but just having a partner there for you, just like the AP said, that's going to be there for you through thick and thin. Because I think that you guys all think that your health is going to be perfect. You ain't going to need nobody to be beside you. I mean, just going to get a colonoscopy for a checkup, you got to have somebody there with you. You know, it's things in life and you take it for granted. You got to find somebody and that's what partners are there for you for. And it's unfortunate that most people don't even realize how significant a companion is or a partner is until they're in a situation that they need somebody and they don't have anybody. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, Inaz. I apologize. You were next.
No problem. I just wanted to say that you're probably new here. welcome. This, in 40 years, if you have not heard men speak positively about marriage, this is the panel, because the majority of men on this panel have all spoken incredibly positively about marriage. And I would encourage you to go back and watch some of the older videos too, where you can hear a plethora of these men talk about marriage positively over and over and over and over again. If they don't do it one week, they will probably do it the following week. Um, because like if we're honest, and we've talked about this all the time, right? Not everybody has had those examples in their immediate surrounding. And unfortunately, algorithms push so much negativity, right? So I'm really grateful that this gentleman is here today to be able to listen to AP and Marcus talk about the positive points of marriage from the male perspective, because it is needed. We do genuinely need more of this stuff. There's so much more of that rah of never getting married, the pseudo I'm terrified of being taken advantage of, and all of this stuff, right? I think it's important to kind of embrace these conversations, even though they're a little bit abrasive and maybe facetious, to give people the opportunity to hear men talk about it, because not everybody gets that opportunity.
And like he was saying too about the benefit, like what's the benefit if you're not having children? I mean, like our children are grown now and out the house, but now that we're in a situation where we don't have children technically, in the house with us, it is another level, a different dynamic in our relationship after raising kids together and now not having children to raise. And it has actually drawn us closer together because now our focus is only on each other, whereas before that had to be split to take care of the kids and stuff like that, work and kids, school, blah blah blah. But now we're at a space in life where it's just us, and the benefit is the companionship part. Like we've always had a friendship, but even now our friendship has gotten even, I would say, deeper. So it's just like I came home, he was just like, yo, we're gonna watch a movie, let's watch this movie before I know you get on the show. And I'm like, all right, cool. So it's just having that companionship. So even though kids are not involved, the relationship itself is still great. Like Shan was saying, if there are medical issues, you want somebody that knows your health history, knows somebody that's going to be able to be there for you and make decisions for you if you can't make them yourself, because they know you that in and out. I know that he or she would want this. Is a lot that is beneficial when you are married to the right person.
Did anybody else? Because I wanted to go to the next question if anybody else wanted to jump in there. All right, so the question is, let me see if so let's do these super chats real fast. Congo. Oh, so he wanted to know the topic of discussion. I hope he figured it out. But like, I don't know if he doesn't. Still no. That was a while ago, I'm sure. Okay. So 40% of Black men have kids by 49%. 49.61% of Black women have kids by 49. Huh?
46% of Black men have kids by 49. 61% of Black women have kids by 49. Source page 12, CDC, the data on National Health Science and Research.
Polly.
So
So I know it's not Polly, But, hey, listen, they go after the same men. It's the same men, Okay, let me. But and this is updated. I think that this new generation of people, 20s, this 20-year-old, I think that those men are not producing kids as much. But we're talking about those 30 plus, because I do remember there was a study in Pew that 71% of Black men had at least one kid at a wedlock. He may be married now to another woman, but he had at least one kid at a wedlock. And that was a 2011 Pew study. You can look it up.
You reading it?
Oh no, go ahead. You're back. No, come on. It's team effort.
Robert Platinum $5. The discrepancy is even more pronounced considering that there are over 2 million more black women than black men in the U.S. There is a solution for that.
There is a solution for that.
There is a solution for that.
There too. Women can just close their legs. But when women are when men are telling women that you can't have a relationship without having sex first, I don't know how that's gonna happen. And just like Marcus said, absolutely. And let's be honest. Just because you don't have any kids does not mean you ain't had a couple of women to go to abortion clinic. Does not mean that you out here protecting yourself, you doing things right. That does not mean that. You just had the right one who was on the same page as you, and she didn't want to have kids, so she didn't mind killing one. Okay, because I'm not. I believe abortion is killing. You can hate me if you want to. I just do. I don't know what else to say it is. But not everybody's down with that program. So just because you don't have children does not mean you've never had children.
I agree with you, Shan.
It sounds worse when you
say it. We know that if that option was taken out the picture and Plan B were taken out the picture, it'd be way more than that.
So, I just want to make a public service announcement. Shan, you look phenomenal tonight.
Thank you.
Nice.
Oh, is everybody?
No,
damn!
I don't say. Hey, look. I don't say it if I don't mean it.
I'm joking, but you say that.
Nice. You look as radiant as ever. And mistaking your smile, ma'am. Yo, you brighten the room with that smile. I appreciate it. So I just wanted to get all of that on record.
Thank you.
And you're beautiful too. I'm not suggesting you're not, but your smile just lights up a room.
It's okay. I just woke up. I ain't at my best right now. I know.
All right, next one.
AP, you done got that mic and your compliment game is flowing now. I see, huh? You ain't playing around with them. They'd be like, I just want to say.
No, look, this is what I have figured out, man. And I actually heard this at work not too long ago. Mm-hmm. Sometimes women are not told that they are beautiful when they are beautiful. I'm not going to tell somebody ugly that they're beautiful. But if, let's just say Shan hadn't heard that all day. Let's just say Anaz hadn't heard that all day. Let's just say Miss Taken's husband was asleep and she ain't heard that all day. Now they heard it. Now they know it's true. Now they can believe it.
Thank you.
It brightens up everybody's day, man. But it is true, though.
All right, Sharon.
I miss Kayla K, Rilla, Quest, Logic from panel. They kept it activated, and don't forget Antoine.
I think she's talking about Thursday night show.
Anton, and that's on a Thursday. That was Thursday.
Great opportunity to introduce ourselves because I know that he put us on both channels. This is the Chic Critique. I am the host of a Chic Critique. My name is Shan Monet, and these are our regular panelists. And we come on Friday nights most of the time. Let's have something to do. But we're here Friday nights on the Lapeef Network. And let's look at the Lapeef Network as like NBC. Okay, so there's a network and there are shows on a network. So J.R. Lapeef is the network, and we're a show on his network. Separate entity, but we're on his network. Does that make sense? I hope that clarifies for everybody.
And there's a show for everybody.
And there's a show for everybody.
Tuesday night, you get King Talk. Wednesday, you get a wild card. Throughout the week, you get the Trigger Mike show. On Friday night, you get a Chic Critique. Mm-hmm. There's some on Sunday, you get Sunday with Lapeef.
Absolutely.
There's a show for everybody almost every day of the week.
Yep. That's exactly correct. And we're grateful to Lapeef for giving us this opportunity. So
absolutely.
The question at hand, do you think that there's an attack on Black men and why?
Which group? Like specifically which attack? Same question for the women. We got image, we got actual physical violence,
Oh
we
Lord,
got
Shay.
reproduction. You gotta pick a subject and I can tell
All
you
of
which
it.
group is
You
responsible.
you tell me all of it. Nothing's off.
I say yes, mainly because the catalyst to the black family, the key to the black family is the black man. And if you can keep the black man out, you can keep the black family separated and divided, just as I stated earlier.
Yeah, I
And
think
that's
that
all groups.
yeah. I think that the removal of vocational training, so things that can actually produce jobs for people as soon as they get out of school, creates a prison pipeline. Because where there's a need, but and especially in a capitalist system, people are going to always need money, and if they have no way to earn money, or they don't see a valuable way to earn money, then all type of chaos can ensue. Because like idle time can create a whole lot of problems when you have young men, especially like under 25, with no job aspirations and no purpose in life, that are just wandering. In any demographic, you're gonna get like a lot of crazy stuff that occurs with young men around that age, and it's starting to transition into young women as well. But we sticking on the men. When it comes to like violence, the collective image of black men prior to what's currently going on was one of super predators that they was publicizing for black men. So it would seem as though the things that would happen violently to us were warranted. And when we engage with each other, it would always be a heightened sense. When I was talking about the threat of violence earlier, I was raised in that era, right? Now the new image is that's being pushed is black men dating other black men or other men in general. So you got the removal of what like heterosexual couples look like, and for black women specific. So like if you look at like Disney cartoons or TV shows or popular things, look at the father in those shows that's with the black woman, and it'll explain everything. If you just look en masse, if you take 10 shows where there's a black mom, just look who that father is, and a lot of that stuff will start to make sense. I've heard somebody compare life to a game of pool, and the game ends when the 8 ball go in the pocket.
I have a question, and this came to me earlier today when I was actually watching Lapeef show on the Thursday one, which they were kind of talking a little bit about this. And a question came to mind for me is, at what if we are, let's say, aware of the attack on black women or attack on black men, at what point, I guess, do we also play into it if we're aware of it, but then don't make the necessary adjustments? Like, at what point does it no longer become a them issue and it becomes a us issue?
Yesterday, Ali asked, "Can we quote Dr. Claude Anderson?" And he got a quote that says, "If you teach people to hate themselves, then they will no longer be oppressed, and they will oppress themselves." I think we in the oppress ourselves portion of that statement. Um, the thing about the majority of people within any racial demographic is their followers. It's not independent thought and creative problem solving. It's not in mass the way most people flow. Most people get in line with whatever the social norm is, and they stick to it. And our social norm happens to be degenerate for the most part. As far as the representation, there was a test. They've done this test. I don't know if anybody's seen it, where they hired 10 actors and had them stand up and then sit down whenever a bell beeped, and then they brought random people who knew nothing of that experiment into the room.
And
And as they cycled them out, by the time the experiment was over, the actors were out the room and the people were still standing up and sitting down to the beep. I think our beep is just degenerate at this point.
Mm.
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 That was pretty good, Marky Mark.
Mhm.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I had to give me some gushers. I know this horn is so toxic, but go ahead.
I love gushers. I
Like,
love gushers.
some gushers.
What's your favorite part about gushers? I just want to hear you say it. What's your favorite part about the gusher?
Shut up.
Did anybody get that? When the fruit shoot your
I'm
mouth.
falling for that one.
That's what she said. Y'all don't get it. All right, never mind.
Anybody else wanted to talk about the attack on men? Anybody else have anything to add?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on this. I think the gentleman did a great job of talking about it, but I think the emasculation of Black men is really important. The image that's being portrayed of Black men now is very effeminate. It's very emotional. It's very erratic, and it becomes less appealing. Because if we really take a look at it, right, if we really dissect it, when a Black man is living in his masculinity, there's nothing more powerful than that. And I'm not saying Black women aren't powerful and aren't amazing and all sorts of, but there is nothing like a Black man living in his masculinity. Nothing compares to it. Not another race, not another ethnicity, not another nothing, right? The power behind that image is already powerful enough. But the power behind the impact of that is really important. And Mistaken talked about the question of like, at what point do we own responsibility of feeding into it? Is when we require the emasculated version of men to exist outside of what's being fed to us, right? And I think to Thursday's show, when they were pushing this narrative of Black men have to cry in front of Black women, it's things like that where why? I don't understand. If the strength of a Black man is so impactful, why is it a requirement that they display emotion in the same way that women do? And so like and that comes from every angle, right? You see it in the fashion industry where now you have Black men wearing skirts, right? And I'm not talking about men who are trans or in the alphabet mafia. I'm talking about heterosexual cis men wearing skirts down the runway. We're seeing that in magazines, we're seeing it on runways, we're seeing it in fashion, right? Then we're seeing it with like the how many times have we seen the crying Jordan meme? How many times have we seen Tyrese crying going viral, like the same video going viral over and over again, right? How many times do we see these randoms, like these skits that we're not sure if their skits are real or not, where men are acting overly emotional, right? We're being force-fed this stuff, and we see it so much that now we're like, if we don't see that level of emotion from a man, then there's something wrong with you. There isn't. A Black man living in his masculinity is the thing that is like absolutely essential to our community. But we've allowed all of these outside forces to influence us in a way where we no longer appreciate the value that brings.
Nas, can you do me a favor? Can you describe what that looks like, a Black man in his masculinity?
Absolutely. So stoicism, right? That does not mean you don't have emotions. That means you have mastered your emotions. You control them. They don't control you. It is influence, right? Not only over yourself, your immediate household, but anybody who comes into contact over you. Just you carrying yourself in the way that you do inspires people to want to know you, want to know more about you, and want to emulate you. Character, right? You stand on business. What you say you mean, and what you mean you say. There is no question about where you stand on things, right? I made the joke earlier about how Marcus has all of us on this panel trained of there's a solution, right? That's a prime example of that. It's a joke, but we're all so programmed that even when we're not on this panel, we still think it when we hear the opportunity. That's the influence of a Black man living in his masculinity, right? He's there, present, not just physically, mentally, emotionally, paying attention, looking around, problem solving. There is a physical and energetic presence to him. He exists in the space. He takes up space. And I could go on forever. I don't know how much time we have, but I'll stop there.
That was dope AF. I love it. I love it. So before you go, Miss Taken,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna say pause before I make this statement. But I've said it before, and I just want to reiterate it. As a man, it's rare you meet another man that is exactly who they say they are. They stand on what they say they stand on. And you brought up Marcus earlier, but I was thoroughly surprised when I met Marcus in real life. The kind of dude where keep this in mind. I'm in a city I'm not familiar with. I see hood rats and ratchets walking up and down the street. I see thugs selling dope out on the street in a city that I'm not familiar with. And of course I'm strapped up, but I'm like, I felt so comfortable where I was like, man, you know what? I ain't even got to take this out the car. And we just kicked it. This dude was who he say he is. That to me is that masculinity embodied that you just described, Missy Nas. But again, Marcus, appreciate it, bro.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate that. We had a good time too. That was funny. We ain't gonna tell the whole story, but that was funny. That was funny. He was in Chicago. He came to Chicago.
One of the things that I did want to say, because I agree with everything you guys said in terms of what man is, and it was just one thing in particular. Like I caught part of that show as well, where they were talking about the crying. My thing is, I don't want to also feel like we need to send a message to say that men can't cry either. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think emotions are a human experience, but it's also where men are trained, I think, a lot of times to not really know how to deal with emotion in general. Like when they're growing up, they're taught, don't cry, don't cry. And I understand that you just don't want them blobbering all over the place, right? Just like as females, I don't think we need to be blobbering all over the place, but it's more acceptable for us to cry, and we tell men that they shouldn't. And I would never want any man to feel as if he's less of a man because he had a moment in which he needed to express, the fact that he needed to cry. Like we're okay with men crying if they lost a football game. You know what I'm saying? Or a basketball game, or if they lost a parent. But to have them cry when they might feel overwhelmed, or there's an emotional something, like their girlfriend says something that they didn't like, something, and then we I think we have a tendency to kind of tell them that they don't have permission to cry for those reasons. Like we give them specific categories in which they can cry in, which I don't think is necessarily fair to them as well, to say that we're going to look at them differently if they do. You can be stoic, but sometimes stoicism, sometimes I think I had told y'all before, where when I had my miscarriage, to some degree, I knew it bothered my husband. He was sad, but I needed him to show me, like he was so stoic to the point that it felt emotionless. You know what I'm saying? And then later on, after talking, a long time after, he revealed to me how much it hurt him. But I would not have known, because in that moment where I needed to see it, where I needed to bond with him in a way, he felt he needed to be this dude so strong. But I needed something different. You know what I'm saying?
But you needed something different. You can control how he handles his.
What I'm saying is, after our conversation, he said he felt he had to be like that for me. So
Well,
he was dealing with his emotion by himself, even though he needed someone for comfort. We needed to be comforting each other, but he felt that he only needed to comfort me, is what I'm saying.
Got you.
So,
All right, Enos.
So I hear what you're saying, mistaken. I think it's a double-edged sword when it comes to men, right? For two reasons. One is that too many women are not actually equipped to hold that man's level of emotion like that with the respect it deserves. It, if not in that time, later becomes weaponized. And that is an uncomfortable situation for a man to be in. I would go as far as saying it is a very dangerous situation for a man to be in. Right? The second part to that is that it's really challenging to ask men to be the providers and protectors and not also have them feel the need to set their feelings aside momentarily. I'm not saying forever, I would never encourage that, but momentarily to be that constant in a situation where there is so much emotion, to be that rock where there is so much emotion, where once she's okay, I can then say, this is how I feel, or allow, like, for him to allow himself to process his feelings once the stability has been restored, right? If, and I'm not saying you, right? I'm like, I know you are exceptional. You are married to an exceptional man. I'm talking about the average person, the everyday person that you come across. For the man and woman to be in emotional turmoil together, that is a recipe for a tumultuous relationship. We see it in things where tragedy is not involved, right? So there's a level of requirement where a man has to put his feelings on pause before there's space for it, right? And I think that's where our duty as women is like, okay, once everything's restored, hey, let's talk about this. Don't push your feelings so far to the back that you never have a chance to feel them, to go through them, to communicate them, right? That's our job, to hold space for them. But we also have to allow them to do their job, to hold space for us when there is turmoil, right? What you needed in that moment, I don't want to take that away from you, right? I have total respect for that. I'm just trying to explain it from the men's perspective of most good men will operate in the way that your husband did. Because the adverse to that is that it could make things worse. And I think most men, even though that there's that small chance that it won't, they're not willing to risk that, because they do this cost benefit analysis thing and they say it's far more likely that it's going to make things worse than better. So let me err on the side of caution and remain in my stoicism. And I think we have to respect that instead of requiring them to move away from the position of being protectors and providers.
Well spoken.
I want to add on. We were just talking about this early on. It goes back to the conversation that even Mistaken agreed with Marcus and his resolution. Imagine she's being emotional and you're saying, I'm up here, I'm up here, I'm up here. And we all agreed that he should be down here. He should be as emotional as she is, because then it escalates to AP's friend situation. So somebody's got to take the role that's not emotional.
I do think it is situational. Like, we would expect a man to cry if he lost a parent, right? If he lost one of his parents. But in that situation, he lost a child. So I would have expected him to cry. It wouldn't have made me look down any less or anything like that. It would have made me actually feel closer to him, because in my mind, I'm feeling like it's bothering me way more than it's bothering him. But for him, on his side, is I wanted to be that rock for you. I didn't want you to see me break down. So I did that on my own. And then that made me feel bad, because I'm like, wow, you shouldn't be going through that on your own. That's what I'm here for. We're supposed to be leaning on each other.
And
So I
I,
would have expected him to cry. That would have been a situation where I think I would need him to be stoic, so to speak. You know what I mean? But
I,
that was just a learning experience for both of us in that in that moment.
so it was a miscarriage, right?
Yeah.
So I think if I was to put myself in his shoes, the main thing I would be trying to ensure is that you didn't like, because sometimes people will blame themselves for stuff and try
Mhm.
like. So I wouldn't want you to feel as though you affected me to make you sadder, because I feel like it would make the situation that much worse. So like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Even if no matter how you felt, you don't want to make her feel worse by showing this, you know what I'm saying? Like it may be how we internalize things, but yeah, I think he handled it the right way
It
too.
made
because
me
the second
feel worse. Like I was hurt that he had to carry that by himself. You know what I'm saying? Like as his wife, I am there to provide emotional support too. It's not just on him. You know what I mean? So to feel I don't know, it just hurt me to hear him when we talked about it, that how hurt he was, but he just carried that weight and did it, dealt with it on his own. While on my end, I'm feeling like, man, how come this isn't bothering him as much as it's bothering me? Only to find out that it did. But he, like I said, carried that weight on his own. And, that hurt me that he felt like he needed to do that to be a man. You know what I mean?
but what's weird to me, mistaken though, is, and you're right, that should bother him. But it's almost like you want him to do what it is that you want him to do. You want him to, you understand what I'm saying? It just seems like you're
Well,
very,
it wasn't. No, it wasn't that. It was I guess the way that I interpreted the way that he was trying to be there for me in that situation where I wanted us to lean on each other. He just wanted me to lean on him. You understand what I'm
right.
saying?
But you said that I got mad because he wasn't feeling the same way I was feeling. So your anger.
No, I didn't say I got mad. I was sad. I was sad that he had to deal with that he felt he needed to deal
No,
with.
no, you said before you knew the conversation that you guys had, you were sad because he did not feel the same way that you felt. Because you went along thinking that he didn't feel the sadness of
Right.
the
Yeah, like I had said, Enos, he was so stoic to the point that it felt cold. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's what it was. It made me feel like maybe he didn't care as much as I did. And that was just because it was like, I guess what Marcus was saying, wanting to make sure that I was all right. So he put himself aside and didn't really deal with it the way that I guess I maybe had a certain expectation or thought that he would have. I don't know. But
Remember earlier we were saying the line for a good man or a good woman was when you put the needs of
right.
other people before he was literally being that in that
Doing
moment.
the exact
You
same
put
thing.
yeah.
See, I can't even tell my story when you say that. Dang it.
So, anybody else want to? Is it a long story?
It the way I tell stories, it could drag on, so I'm not going to.
Did anybody else want to add on to the conversation? I think that, do you think that because we don't allow men to, that's why men are so detached on everything? Like they can't get close to anything. Like maybe the attachment to the kid is just too much. Like just I'd rather just be distant. Like I'd rather just not even get involved. It's like even when it comes to relationship, I won't even. I'll just be in a detached mode. Like it's only sexual. I don't even want to put myself to that point to fall in love. Like, do you think that leads to the reason why men are so detached in the way they move in different situations? But go ahead.
I think we naturally compartmentalize, but I will say, due to the way that we psychologically, biologically wired, that if a man expresses too much interest in a woman before she expresses that same amount of interest, it'll scare her away. It'll push her away. So Like
But we're talking. I'm not even talking about before. I'm talking about months and years down the. I know too early. I'm not saying fall in love the next day, baby. I love you. I'm talking about a natural time.
right. I think that's a healthy like a healthy skill would be like learning how to compartmentalize until you're sure it's the right thing, and then because it's again running your emotions through the logic filter, right? So you have to make sure that this is the right time to feel this way, this is the right time to behave this way, because as much as people might advocate for them, nobody wants an emotional man, an overly emotional man. Nope, nobody actually wants that. And I think like, so when you was just describing that, somebody might have heard mistaken. They might have heard, see, they want us to be emotional and they not met, because nuance is a thing that we struggle with. They want us to be emotional. And then like, not only is nuance a thing we struggle with, the way we communicate also. So you were expressing that, I know what you meant, but there was somebody who would have heard that story and taken a complete different meaning of, this is what you wanted from him and you want him to lower himself. And then when he does it, you're going to leave him because you seen him like, we communicate in different ways. You just kind of got to let some stuff be.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of talked about this last night, but they didn't really dive into it. So I'm going to kind of pose this question to the panel as a whole. I just sat here and thought about it. I think men are actually more emotional than women, which is why we must be stoic, because if we allow our emotions to show, they will the intensity of our emotions are 10 times what I think women fully understand in regards to how we experience it. So when we talk about anger, right, it turns into rage. When we talk about sadness, it turns into detachment, like complete detachment. So I think we have a 0 or 100 scale. Is that accurate to say? I mean, I don't know the science behind it, so I'm curious. Is that accurate to say?
So I'll say that for men who don't have emotional regulation. If you don't have the tools to temper yourself out of extremes, I think you were absolutely correct. Right? I think the issue is, to what Marcus was talking about, is that there's this double standard that exists simultaneously for men and their emotions, right? Women are pushing for men to have a certain level of emotion that mimics the way women express emotion, with the lack of understanding that men just express their emotions differently. Doesn't mean it's better, doesn't mean it's worse. They are just simply different, because men are men, women are women. If we were the same, then we could expect the same thing, right? But at the same time, because women are pushing for this kind of symbiosis in emotional expression, they also aren't used to it. So they don't handle it with the level of care that women have been taught in previous generations. So I think that's the thing that forces men to these extremes where, as a man, when I am expressing emotion, the woman that I'm with is not understanding, and then she's not handling it with respect and handling it appropriately. So now I have to have an even bigger reaction for her to actually understand what it is I'm feeling. So I think men don't have the tools to regulate themselves on their own. And I think women are fueling the fire, but also not having the tools to handle what a man's emotions look like when he's communicating them. So I think the two things combined create this really toxic environment.
Y'all ever like been able to observe a very emotional man like at length? They are dangerously unpredictable. Like dangerously unpredictable. Like
JP.
dangerously unpredictable.
Yeah. So, anybody else have an attack on me? Because I got one more video to watch, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. Super chat. Yes, it is.
Robert,
What is that? A salt shaker?
that's his salt and Robert Platinum for $2. Yes, it is assault and battery. Like the charge. assault and battery. That was clever. He be having some clever stuff. He said, I never had a woman ask me to be a rock, but I had a woman ask me for a rock. He funny as hell on the low.
Oh, miss. Thank you, Robert Blackman. Okay, so we got one video. One more video.
Black and beautiful means nothing unless you're black and powerful. Let's just get that straight. You cannot be black and proud and niggas too, okay? That white folks are planning for 3 generations and we're planning for Saturday night, right? Because whole brothers and sisters is to win, not to look like we're winning. I would rather carry a plastic bag with $5,000 in it than to carry a $5,000 Louis Vuitton bag with $100 in it. Louis Vuitton winning, Nike is winning, Gucci is winning, Armani is winning. You ain't winning. We are the consumption class. They are the merchant class. They make stuff, we buy stuff. It is interesting to me that the rich stay rich by pretending to be poor, and the poor stay poor by pretending to be rich. And all the statistics tell us this. The Institute of Policy Studies, April 2017, the Economic State of Black America said, and I give you the final quote from that 300-page study, which no Negro read, that by 2053, 10 years after the majority becomes the minority, if nothing changes among African Americans, household median wealth will be 0. In effect, we will have worked our way into a second slavery. Try to operate in a market-based economy and a democratic capitalistic society without money. Let's see how that works for you. And ain't nobody fixing us but us. White people are not fixing black people. It's been 400 years and we ain't fixed. We're not even thinking about black people. And I'm not hating on white people. I'm just telling the truth. You know who white people are thinking about? They're thinking about white people. They're thinking about their wives, their children, their communities, their schools, their businesses, and your pockets. That's what they're thinking about.
So this is the only part where he's really wrong. They are thinking about black people, and the reason they're thinking about black people is to figure out how to take more from black people. So you can't say everything you said at the beginning about the consumption and the consumer, and then at the end say you're not even thinking about the consumer. That doesn't make sense.
But you know
your
what?
thoughts are all about the consumer. Maybe it's for selfish purposes, but your thoughts are all about the consumer.
But
you know the consumer, you can know what to sell.
But I find it interesting that AP, that was the first thing you thought about. So you went straight to white people when the entire video was about black people. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like you jump to the other to make the other person accountable. Let's talk about Nick. We did niggas out here.
No,
I agree.
I agree. I said I agree. I said I agree with everything except for how he said it at the end. I agree with what he said.
He's saying that he don't agree with the fact that he said that white people ain't thinking about black people, because they are. But I think in the context in which the guy was talking about, he meant they ain't thinking about black people in terms of trying to save us or trying to look out for us. That was the context in which he was talking about, speaking to it.
That I originally heard that speaking point from him. I think that's in his book Freakonomics, not Power Economics. I think it's like that he might be reading that entire excerpt from there, because I heard pretty much the exact same. I read pretty much the exact same part in that book. The average median net worth. Most people are living check to check, and I think the average. Do you have the stats up right now? Because it might be way before 2053. Because most people are living check to check. The price of rent is going up. The home ownership is on the decline. People are taking longer and longer to buy their first starter property. We in a bad way financially, and we are, like Kanye said, I can't go to the store without some ones that's clean and a shirt with a team. Like, I fell victim to that too. I wanted to always make sure I was extra fresh every time I stepped out the house, but I ain't bought nothing since I had kids. Like my stuff probably 3 year, 4 hour old is. That's the last time I went shopping for myself. My kids gave me a lot of self-reflection and putting things in perspective of what was really important. For other people, it might be something else. But once you solve for that and you can figure out what matters, you spend differently, you think differently, and you consume differently. And one of the roles about men being in the home is we temper spending as well. So women are emotional spenders by and large. So that's why most advertisements go towards women, because they've always said historically women can control that's across spectrums, control the purse strings within a home. So if you can appeal to them, then you will be able to create a consumer base. To what AP was saying, we are the consumer base in capitalism. You need consumers. So to that point, but yeah, I think that it's again where everything boils back to, it's an internal issue, because when you solve for self and you become enough, then you know you have enough. But as long as you feel you're lacking, then you will always be out trying to fix that internal problem with an external solution, and it's very temporary at best.
You're on mute, Chan.
When we talk about women, thank you. When we talk about women in consumerism, I think that's all women. That's not black women. That's all women. Like
I said that.
Okay.
No, I said that. I said all women across races.
Okay, gotcha. I'm sorry. I just want to emphasize it with emphasis.
So as much as I agree with what the gentleman said in the video, it's not by happenstance. It's by design, right? When we take a look at the history of Black people in predominantly non-Black countries, there's this forced assimilation, right? You have to, not only do you have to look a certain way and talk a certain way in order to fit in and have opportunity, but what's the saying? You have to work twice as hard to have half as much, right? This idea of having a look of emulating wealth in order to get opportunity, that isn't something that's inherent to Black people. We were taught that because in corporate America, at the grocery store, when you're being pulled over by the police, whatever the circumstances is, when you're just out here navigating, whether you're at a parent-teacher conference, when you're out there navigating in society, if you don't have a look that is considered acceptable by that greater society, you're not taken seriously. You're not given the same opportunity. You're not given interactions that have dignity and respect behind them, right? And so I think a lot of people don't know how to really temper that or have the self-confidence to navigate that, even if you don't fit in. But let's not pretend that Black people just impose this on themselves out of thin air and said, you know what, we're just going to buy all these things just for the fun of it. Black people have a swagger to them that even if they're wearing rags, it becomes cool. And we know that because, what was it, just a few years ago, all of the high-end brands had a bunch of holes in everything, whether it was t-shirts to everything. Kanye started it and all the other brands started doing it too. Everything looked like it came out of Value Village and it was really tore up. There is a swagger that's natural to Black people, but it's not accepted or respected in the same way unless it comes with a label. It's so easy for people to just like spew these facts of like, Black people aren't concerned about these things. I have never in my life met a single Black person who is not worried about the generations behind them. They just don't have the tools or the knowledge to do it appropriately. And that's not by accident either. Think about when it comes to like financial literacy, how challenging it is for the average person to have access to that knowledge. They give you bits and pieces here and then hide all of the important stuff behind paywalls or networks that most people don't have access to, right? It's so easy to spit out these facts of like, you know, I'd rather carry it in a garbage bag. I promise you that man has never carried that much money in a plastic bag in his life. And yet he's imposing that on Black people that you got to do it this way in order to make it. We give these things that are so clickbaity that it inspires this conversation in the wrong direction. We want to have a conversation about financial literacy. Let's actually talk about financial literacy. That doesn't include, you know, not having coffee because people need coffee to function, right? Let's talk about financial literacy.
Bothering you, ain't it? That Starbucks bothering you. That Starbucks bothering you.
Listen, I don't. Me and Starbucks aren't friends anymore. But that was the advice that was given. If you give up your Starbucks every day, then like you can save X amount of money and you can invest that. People need their coffee to function, right? And it's that simple. Like it's not viable financial literacy tools that you're giving to people. It's clickbaity and it sounds fun and it sounds easy and all of this. It's not actually helping generations, because you know what? Those rich people who are pretending to be broke, they're still buying their Starbucks, whether there's a boycott or not. They're still lining up to buy their $8, $9 lattes every freaking morning. That's not the key to financial literacy. But we want to wag our finger at Black people and be like, if you just stop spending it on X, Y, and Z, that's not it, right? Because rich people, sorry, Shane, I'm going to end on this. Rich people will invest in expensive things because they know the things that will continue to hold value past the point of purchase. Black people don't understand that, so they buy the things that are equally expensive that they depreciate in value because we don't have that understanding of it. The financial literacy tools are just not there.
And I agree with you. Something that you said about the way you look, and I even argue, even when you show up for an interview, just looking the part. You know, if you're running for whatever, you have to look the part. So you have to spend money on a nice suit, a tailored suit, to get a nice job. So I agree with everything that you are saying. But one of the things I do agree with him saying is it looks a little different. You know, we do plan for the future, but not that we do put a lot of plan in Friday nights than we do. You know, I mean, we just talked about it, talking about the woman who goes out instead of watching her kids, or the man who does this instead of doing that. So it does look the legacy does look a little different. We have to admit.
So I had a conversation. I had a lot of conversations with this guy. He owned almost $1 billion worth of real estate, and I would go pick his brain a lot, right? And he had a G-Wagon, and he told me, he was like, I bought a used G-Wagon because they keep the body the same style for 10 to 12 years roughly. So what year was this? Like 2014. So he probably had like a 2008 G-Wagon. And what he told me is because he had cash, he was able to pay, I think, $58,000 for the G-Wagon. The truck lasted him for 5 years until he got rid of it right before the new body style dropped. He told me that the average cost of that truck amounted to $1,000 a year. So he was driving a G-Wagon for 5 years for $5,000. So his overall cost was $5,000 in depreciation because he sold it right before. For if it was 56, he sold it for 51. 5 years for a G-Wagon. But he said the way money works, you have to have the capital on hand in order to be able to utilize the deal. So like the income tax check, people who only have 5,000 can buy a car that's probably worth 2,000. They got fixed up a little bit, pay 5,000, the car break down, and you got to take it back. At 56,000, you can only spend 5,000 because you had the 56 and get your 51 back, and you were able to have a G-Wagon for 5 years. And that could also be written off as a tax expense based off of the weight of the vehicle. It's things like that that people don't have access to. And by me being able to go and talk to him a lot, I was just picking his brain at all times.
Anybody else to add to that conversation?
Yeah, so to what Marcus was talking about, I was watching a video just a couple of days ago of this young Black woman who was talking about her career trajectory, right? She's in the IT world. One, we know there's not a whole lot of people of color in the IT world. And two, there's not a lot of women. So she's like a super double minority in that, right? But she was talking about how she was able to get all of these promotions so much faster than her colleagues. And part of that, because in the IT world, they tend to be very casual. You know, we talk about white women and their messy buns and all of this stuff. And she said that she had to find this balance between being very put together and not looking pretentious. Because of her gender, because of her skin color, that if she didn't combine those two to find the right amount of looking put together and professional and not looking like she was overdoing it, that allowed her in the workplace in certain situations where she would not be taken seriously to be taken seriously, right? So when we talk about Black people and this image that they put on in order to try to get ahead, like, it does work. And that's the thing that stops people from over consuming, because we've seen it time and time again, to some degree or another, that it does work. If you're wearing something that has labels on it as a Black person, that is very different than you having something on that does not have labels on it. We act like there isn't this double standard for the white community, right? I think we talked about this, like, it was a while ago, right? We talked about how Mark Zuckerberg wears these very generic t-shirts. Somebody did a little bit of research on that. Those very generic t-shirts that look exactly the same as the t-shirts in Walmart are $600 a pop. They call it this quiet luxury, because the label that he wears is not a label that's recognizable to the general public. It's still a luxury item, right? There's longevity, there's quality to it, and that's why he chooses them. But at the same time, he's allowed to do that because he's been wearing those t-shirts for years before he reached billion-dollar status. But when Black people do it, because we can see the logo, we can see the little Gucci signs all over the belt, we can see the Gucci sign on the buckle, we see the Balenciaga across the t-shirt, that then we want to demonize it. But what happens is, like, the real luxury just winds up being hidden and inaccessible to people. And we say, look at that, you could dress like him in an outfit at a Walmart instead of wearing these brands, when they're not, that's not what's actually happening. So it's almost like a dog whistle where we're saying these things, but to people who really understand how it works, it's screaming racism very quietly, but it's only if you can actually hear what they're saying that, like, you're able to really point it out.
I don't know if y'all ever seen this movie called Dope, where some shorties they start selling drugs online and got Bitcoin for the drugs. It was four friends. None of y'all ever seen? Okay. Well, in the movie, one of the guys they went to go sell to cash out their Bitcoin with was a dude who was a counterfeiter, right? And he had two bags on the table. And one was a perfect, like, 1-for-1 A1 clone of, let's just say it was a what's the bag that everybody you got to get on the waiting list to get? That's like between 75,000 and 250, I think. 250K for the bag. A Birkin. Was it a Birkin? So look, he was like, the only difference between this bag and that bag is who's wearing it. He was like, you're poor from the hood. I can look at you and see you're poor from the hood. I can give you the real bag, and I can give this woman a fake bag, but it's obvious she has wealth. It's the exact same bag. It's the person that's wearing them that changes the value of the bag. I was like, that was profound. And unfortunately, we try and put the label on to show that we have value, and it still doesn't quite equate to that. But if you could solve it internally and not care, that's why I always rotate back to that. If you could solve internally that you have the value, then you can exude confidence in whatever you wear as long as it's clean.
So Marcus, I want to ask you this question. So how do you, because I agree with what you say, but how do you reconcile that thought process with the working twice as hard to get half as much? How do you make those two meet in the middle?
So you would have to probably offhand, you would have to discard public opinion and not care about the things you're working toward. Like, so, all right. If your ideal, it's a more complex thing. How can I put it? If your ideal of what the end goal of working twice as hard is still rotates around somebody else validating you, you're always going to be in that thought process, right? Ask me the question again so I can explain it better, because I don't think I'm explaining what I'm trying to say.
So this idea of rejecting what society teaches you to wear your wealth in order to be respected, and having to work twice as hard to get half as much, how do people balance those two to find success?
Success is perspective based. So it goes back to the self reflection. Success is what you feel when you feel you're successful. It's somebody that if they woke up today with 500 million, they would feel like the world ended. And it's somebody that if they woke up with $1 million, they'll feel extremely grateful. So it is perspective based. If that answers that question, what kind of answers it?
Yep, thank you.
My baby just came out. Hold on.
And I have nothing to add. That was great dialogue, you two. I mean, I can make something up.
Right, because you guys started talking about like stuff over my head. I had to just mute. And we didn't have any more super chats. I'm trying to read the chat or whatever.
I don't see any.
We're about to sum this thing up anyhow, because y'all know it is 2:08 in the A. Do y'all want me to drop the link? I can drop the link if y'all want me to, just for like 30 minutes.
That's up to you guys. I'm good either way.
Okay, I don't see anybody who wants to drop the link. Okay, go ahead, Mark. We're gonna end on your, unless somebody else has something to say. But go ahead.
No, my daughter just came out. I was just coming back.
That's all right.
Solve for personal. If you feel enough, then you'll start to radiate it out, and then you'll probably be able to attract what you need. But as long as you feel inadequate, it's gonna be an uphill battle.
And that's all part of the game Nas was talking about to me about 3 weeks ago. And it was much appreciated, taken in, and there are things in motion. You were so spot on, man.
Oh, wow, it's 7 a.m. in the UK. ISGJA is in the UK. Okay, you guys. Well, it has been a great night with you guys. Another Friday night. Did I push the man to the side to be with you guys? I'm just saying, it's a joke. It was a joke, you guys. My apology. You gotta have humor this early in the morning.
Did that just beep? Is it still beeping?
Yeah, it just beeped.
I told you they have to come. I have to change it out. It's no longer. It's the because I got it through my security system, so it's not like I can just go buy another one, or they have to send me one to replace it out. I actually had to call them. But you know what? It's so funny. Let's just talk for 2 seconds. Even my door panel is going out. I think they designed it because you know how you have to pay for it up front, a part of the monthly bill. They designed it so that these technical difficulties can go on, and then you have to repurchase another one. You know what I'm saying? So after so many years, now that you don't pay it off, it don't work no more. It's not a.
I think I would just
Apple.
like that. Yeah.
Apple was notorious for doing that early on with not doing the firmware updates for their older phones whenever they came out with the new phones, to basically force you to purchase a
Isaiah
new phone.
has a man. Sorry, I just had to say. Go ahead.
Hey, you know Isaiah be simping for you. Come on now.
Yeah, it's not. We tried it. We did everything that we were supposed to do, and so they just have to send another one.
So navigated the corporate world plenty of times. So just a little tip: go get you a quote from their competition, and then call them and say, "This is the quote I got from the competition." They also have hardware that does not malfunction at the rate that yours does. So if you would like to keep me as a client, this is your opportunity. And I promise you, they will send you pieces that don't break apart. So
yes, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So
I mean, I went to Home Depot my last house, got a keypad, Home Depot keypad, $70. That thing lasted years. I'm talking about 8, 9, when they first started coming, years. This sucker, I done had to change it twice. And I've been in this house moved in here in 2020. And in this house alone, I've had to change it already twice. Like, what are we doing here? Like, it's crazy.
That's the thing, and sometimes you have to leverage your buying power in order to be taken seriously. So if you do that, you'll probably wind up with results that you'll be happier with.
Thank you, Ina.
Nas be on point. I'm telling you.
Yeah, she do be on point.
And she be dropping nuggets. I hope people be listening. Because I know I do.
Don't speak about no nuggets because I'm hungry.
You know, it's funny. As soon as we get off of this, I'm actually going to run to the store to grab something.
I'm in here. I was over here eating Gusher because I'm so hungry. That's the only thing that was
Did you ever answer Marcus on what your favorite part was?
My favorite part of the Gusher?
Mm-hmm.
Shut up. Shut up.
Well, I was just curious, asking for a friend.
All right, you guys. It has been a wonderful night. Thank you guys for staying in with us. We'll see you next week. Talk to you later. Night night.